Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement webinar. In this webinar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to your retirement. Or it's possible your retirement might be 3 months away or 3 weeks away. So we're talking about a much shorter amount of time leading up to it. In any case, that means that you're going to retire soon, and you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? Do I need to do anything? And if I need to do something, what do I need to do? Okay, so I will answer all of your questions today. I have arranged the answers to your questions in the form of this checklist. And I really enjoy this part of my job because I like taking all of this kind of complicated pension information and breaking it down for you into digestible bits. So that's what we've done here in this checklist. Okay, this is your pre-retirement checklist. First of all, I'm going to help you understand your membership. We're going to talk a little bit about your contributions to the retirement fund. I'll show you a retirement timeline. We'll talk about your tier. Okay. Then we will talk about estimating your retirement benefit. I will help you understand the retirement formula, which will help you understand what the estimate that you get means. We'll talk briefly about purchasing service credit. We will talk at length about how getting paid for your earned vacation that you're not going to use affects your salary component of the retirement formula. And I'll show you the benefit estimator tool that helps you get a precision estimate. Okay, then in the second half of the presentation, I will help you verify your retirement eligibility. I'll talk about choosing your retirement date. I'll show you the process that it takes to actually apply to retire and what the differences between the 5 retirement allowance options are that you'll be asked to choose from during the retirement process. I will also help you understand other benefits, including medical, dental, vision. We'll talk a little bit about life events and then signing up for Sarah News. Okay, let's get started. First, I want to address a question that's up on the board. Will the slides be available for download? They actually already are available for download. Let me show you where to find those. Okay, so here is our website, acera.org. Let me show you a wider view. Here we go. Okay, so you go under news and events. You go down to retirement planning seminars. You click that. You scroll down a little bit and you open up this accordion that says pre-retirement webinar. And here, the pre-retirement seminar presentation handout is a PDF. You can click on that and download it. I just updated it this morning because I made a slight number update to the webinar this morning. Okay, so you can go ahead and download that there. We'll also be talking about this retirement planning worksheet in just a few minutes. First, let me help you understand your membership with Acera. Okay, so here's the beginning of the story. Let's start at the beginning. Who is Acera? Well, Acera, in one sense, is this acronym. It's the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But Acera is made up of a lot of people. There's about 90 plus of us that work at Acera. And what we do at Acera, our entire job, is to provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. That's you. You are members of Acera, so you are also part of Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the place that you work and the position that you work in. Okay, so you work currently, or at some point in the past, you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position for one of the 6 participating employers that use Acera to provide retirement benefits to their employees, including Alameda County and these 5 other agencies in Alameda County. So if you work for one of these public employers in that full-time retirement eligible position, you automatically become an Acera member. Now, you don't have to maintain full-time employment. You could go down to part-time and you still maintain your Acera membership. That's totally fine. It's just at some point you had to have worked in that full-time retirement eligible position to gain your Acera membership. And it happened automatically once you got into that position. And as an Acera member, you contribute to Acera's retirement fund. With every paycheck, I may have a screenshot of that. Nope, I don't. With every paycheck, if you look at the pre-tax deductions column on your paycheck, you will see a line item that says retirement or something similar, and you'll see some money being deducted from your check. That money is taken out of your check and it's put into a Sarah's fund. And every time that happens, your employer is also contributing to a Sarah's fund on your behalf. So we have this big pool of money called a Sarah's fund, and what we do with it, instead of just letting it sit there and collect dust, is we invest it in a diverse array of investments all over the world with the goal of earning interest. And it's your contribution, your employer's contribution, and the interest that we earn, these three sources of income combined, that give us this huge pot of money that we call a Sarah's fund. Now, what do we do with that money? We don't just want it to sit around, and we're not just collecting it for no reason. What are we going to do with that money? Well, you are, while you work, earning credit toward retirement throughout your entire career. This is when you start your full-time retirement eligible position all the way throughout your entire career. Okay, then at some point in the future, you are going to stop earning credit toward retirement and you are going to start collecting the retirement that you've earned in the form of a monthly retirement allowance that you will receive every month for the rest of your life. It's kind of amazing. You cannot outlive your retirement. You're going to keep getting that pension check every month for the rest of your life. Now, I threw out the word pension there, so let me just define some terms. This monthly retirement allowance that I'm talking to is the same as some other terms I'll use are pension, pension allowance, retirement benefit, um, pension benefit. These are all synonymous terms for the same concept. It is the monthly payment that you have earned throughout by earning credit throughout your career that you are collecting upon retirement every month for the rest of your life. You earned it. Okay, let me show you some pension milestones. So this is the timeline that I was talking about earlier. This will help you kind of gain some context for some of the different retirement concepts that we're going to talk about during this presentation. Okay, so these are the milestones that you've probably passed most of these or some of these so far since you're in the pre-retirement webinar. But let me talk a little bit about each of these. Okay, so first, you have your date of hire. This is your first day that they told you to show up to work if you were hired right into your full-time retirement eligible position, or if you started out part-time or in some other capacity working for your employer, this would be your first day in that full-time retirement eligible position. That's your date of hire. Okay, then what happens for most people is 2 weeks goes by. And the first day of your second pay period is your date of entry into a SARA. This is your first day of a SARA membership, and this is the day you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, two of our employers, I believe it's Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District and the Housing Authority, there's no 2-week lag. So your date of hire and your date of entry into a SARA is the same day. For everyone else, there's a 2-week lag. Okay, so now you're in a SARA member. What happens? Well, you start working and you earn credit toward retirement. Once you earn 5 years of credit toward retirement, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years, you're considered vested in the retirement system. And at that point, what happens is some of the benefits that you are eligible for come online, and you start being able to collect them. Okay, investing just kind of means guaranteed. Okay, so once you're vested, you can access the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits that a SARA provides by law. Okay, so then there's some point after you're vested at which you become eligible to retire. Now, it's going to be different for everyone because it's some combination of your years of service credit and your age. And I'll show you the different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility a little bit later, okay? But this is your first day, once you're eligible to retire, that you can retire if you want to. Now, many people don't. Many people want to keep working after that to earn more and more credit after retirement, which is why I should kind of show a gap here between these, because most people do that. But you don't have to. You could retire on your retirement eligibility day. Okay, now there's 2 more milestones up here that are kind of close together. The first one is the date that you leave your job, also known as your termination date or your last day on payroll. This is the day that you stop earning credit toward retirement. Now, many people who are participating in this webinar are probably going to go straight from active work into retirement, which is why I put these 2 milestones close together. And in that case, you would be leaving your job on one day and your date of retirement, your first day that you're actually retired, is the next day after that. And that is the day that you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. Okay. Now, for some of you, that may not be the case. You might leave early and not retire immediately. And you become what we call a deferred member, which means there would be a gap between these two milestones, and that's totally fine. That just means that you stop working and you defer your retirement to a later date. And so your membership is just kind of on hold until you're ready to retire. Okay, so let's say that you have reached the retirement date milestone. This is the date that you choose, and this is when you start collecting that monthly lifetime retirement allowance. Now, you're going to collect that every month, all the way up until your death. And that is when your retirement payments stop. But there is another milestone on the chart, as you can see, at the time of retirement, when you're selecting your retirement option, many of the options will allow you to leave a continuance payment, which is a continuing monthly payment to a beneficiary after your death. And so they could get a lifetime monthly continuous payment after your death. And at that point, that is when the beneficiary payments stop, and that is when we have fully paid you out all of the retirement that you have earned. Okay, so there's a quick question up on the board, and I will definitely cover this at length in the second half of the presentation. Can the last days or weeks of work be vacation time? Absolutely. You can be on leave on that termination date, and that's totally fine. And I'll talk about that when I talk about choosing your retirement date. Okay, what I want to show you right now is this little tool that we made that might be helpful to you. It's purely optional, but this is something that you could do. There was a link to this if you registered for the this live session here today. Otherwise, you can just go to acera.org/worksheet, and it's a PDF that will pop open. And what you're seeing here is one section of it. Let me go back to the website and show you how to navigate to it if you don't want to type in acera.org/worksheet. So you go to acera.org. Again, you go under news and events. You go down to retirement planning seminars. You open the accordion under pre-retirement webinar, and here it is, retirement planning worksheet. Now, this is a PDF that we created. It's fillable electronically, so you can type into these fields. But what I recommend doing is click the download button, download it to your device, and then open it up on your device and type into it. And that way you can save what your work that you've done. Okay. And what this is a 2-page worksheet, and this just has some fields in it and some different sections. This is kind of what we designed to be an optional takeaway from this webinar if you want to fill it out as we go along. So this contains a bunch of the different numbers that you might learn for your own situation from the different things that I'm going to tell you about how Acera works. And the idea here is that there's a lot of, there's 3 hours and 15 minutes worth of information here, and it's kind of a lot. So if you want to take some notes on the worksheet as we go along, and then after the seminar is over and a few months go by and you want to try to like refresh yourself on what you learned, you can go back to the worksheet and you don't have to like relearn everything. So I will be referring to the worksheet throughout, but like I said, it's purely optional if you want to do it as we go along, or if you don't want to do it later, that's fine too. And again, it's at acera.org/worksheet. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the My Career Timeline section of the worksheet. Now, if you want to, at this point, you could fill out your Acera entry date if you happen to know what it is. Now, it's kind of a specific date, and it may be a long time ago, so I've written up here approximate dates are okay. So if you just want to get, right in here approximately what you think it is, if you kind of remember like it was November of 2002, you can write that in. Also, at this point, you can pencil in a projected retirement date if you happen to have one in mind. And I say pencil in because you might learn something during the webinar that might make you want to kind of adjust that date a little bit. But, we'll see what happens. Okay, let me just say a couple more words about vesting. First, like I said, it comes with 5 years of service credit, the full-time 5 years, or the equivalent of full-time, working full-time for 5 years. And that includes reciprocal time that you worked. So if you worked somewhere else for 3 years, you came here, established reciprocity. When I say somewhere else, another public agency in California that we have reciprocity with, you come here, you work here 2 years, you have linked them together, that gets you over the vesting requirement with 5 years total. And the guarantee part of it, I said vesting means guaranteed. The guarantee comes from state law. State law tells us how to run a SARA. It governs everything we do here. And the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits, are that retirement allowance for life, the monthly retirement benefit for life. Also, an annual cost of living increase to your allowance, and I'll give you more details about that in the second half of the presentation, but that happens every year. Also, a $1,000 lump sum death benefit is considered a vested benefit. Now, there are other death benefits associated with the 5 different retirement options, which I'll tell you about in the second half of the presentation as well. But this is kind of a basic $1,000 lump sum death benefit that is considered vested. Okay, so at this point, if you happen to want to write down your vested date, you can. It's not super important, especially if you know that you're well past 5 years. But all you would do is take your SARA entry date, add 5 years, put in the vested date. Okay, so let me tell you about your tier. The tiers represent sort of the different benefit levels of a SARA. And they're all a little bit different. And your tier, the tier that you are in, is based on your date of entry into a SARA. You're all in one of these tiers. Now, to find which tier you're in, and to find which timeline to look at on this chart, first of all, safety members are going to look at the bottom timeline. Now, safety members are sheriff's deputies and probation officers, and there may be some other sworn officers in there that are safety members. So you would look at the bottom timeline. Everyone who's not a safety member is a general member. And you're going to look at the top timeline unless you're a general member who works for the housing authority, then you look here, or a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District, and then you look at the timeline for your employer. The way this works is that if you enter a SARA before the cutoff date for the end of the tier, that puts you in the earlier tier. So for example, if you entered a SARA before July 1st, 1983, as a general member, that would put you in tier 1. If you entered a SARA July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would put you in tier 2. If you entered a SARA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would put you in tier 4. So that's what determines your tier, is your SARA date of entry. Now you'll notice that the housing authority has a different cutoff date for tier 2, for tier 1, the end of tier 1. Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District has a tier 3 and not a tier 2, and there's a different cutoff date. Safety members have 3 different tier 2s. And if you're a safety member and you entered between October 17th, 2010 and December 31st, 2012, you are either in tier 2C or tier 2D, and you had made that choice within 45 days of achieving your safety membership. Now, if you don't remember which tier you're in, and this actually goes for everyone, if you want to verify definitively which tier we have you in our database, you can simply log into your Asera account by going to our website, asera.org, clicking the login button, and putting in your username and password, and getting into your account, and it will tell you which tier you're in, and it will also tell you your Asera date of entry, along with a lot of other information that we have for you in our database. If you've never done that, it's quite easy. All you need to do is do that same thing. Go to asera.org, press the login button, and then you just have to create an account. There's a link in there to create an account. And once you answer a few security questions and create a username and password, you'll find once you get in there, your pension data is sitting there waiting for you. Okay, so now that you know which tier you're in, or you probably already knew which tier you're in, you can go ahead and mark that on your worksheet if you so choose on the My Tier section. Okay, so next section of the checklist. Estimating your future retirement benefit, also known as your retirement allowance or your pension benefit, your pension allowance. Before I show you how to get a specific personal estimate for what your future retirement allowance is going to be in retirement, I want to explain a few things to you that will help you understand how we provide that estimate to you and how we ultimately calculate your actual retirement when you retire. And this explanation will also help you plan for that last period leading up to retirement, that 3 years or 3 months or 3 weeks, whatever it is for you leading up to retirement. It will help you do some final prep if you understand how this calculation works. Okay. So let me tell you how our pension formula works. This is how we're going to calculate your retirement allowance when you go to retire. In retirement, you are going to get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service that you worked during your career. Okay. This formula is basically doing the multiplication of what this sentence is describing. Now, let me give you some numbers. Let me plug some numbers in here, and it will help kind of flesh out this concept a little bit. Okay, so when you go to retire, you're going to receive a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service. And let's say that percentage for you is going to be 2% of your highest salary. So you're going to get 2% of your highest salary for each year of service. Now, let's say that you worked full-time or the equivalent of full-time for 20 years. So you earned 20 years of service credit. So we'll plug that in the formula. That means that you are going to get 2% of your highest average monthly salary for each individual one of those 20 years of service that you worked. Now, to simplify this, we simply need to take the 2% and multiply it by the 20 years. That gives us 40%. So when we take the 2% and we apply it to each one of those 20 years and we total it, we get 40%. So your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest average monthly salary in this example that I'm doing. Okay, so to finish off the example, let's say that your highest average monthly salary is $5,000 per month while you are working. That means that your retirement allowance for life that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life is going to be 40% of a monthly amount of $5,000 that you were making while you were still working. We multiply those together, and that gives us $2,000 because 2,000 is 40% of 5,000. See how that works? It's not actually that complicated. So that's our pension formula. That's what we're going to calculate for you when you go to retire. The bottom line here is that because this is a multiplication, the higher any of these three factors in the formula are: the age factor percentage, the years of service credit, the highest average monthly salary, equals a larger and larger monthly retirement allowance for life. So when I said in the beginning of the presentation that throughout your career you're earning credit toward retirement, you are earning credit in these three categories. You're earning credit in the age factor percentage category simply by getting older. The age factor percentages go up the older you are when you retire, and I'll show you some examples of those in just a minute. The more and more years of service credit you earn, that increases your service credit factor. The higher and higher salaries you earn throughout your career through raises and cost of living increases, and perhaps promotions, that increases your salary. So that's how you maximize your retirement allowance, is by maximizing each of these three individual factors in the formula. Okay, so, and there's a quick question. How granular is the service credit time by days, weeks, months, years? We measure service credit down to 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes you work, you earn 15 minutes of service credit. So ultimately, what I'm saying is it's measured down to the fraction of a day, and you get all of that, all those decimal places in the formula for you. So if this were a real calculation that we were doing, there would probably be like 5 decimal places after this. It would say 20.87625. And you get all of that credit all the way up until you terminate your employment. And you just get all that in the formula. Okay, so what I'm going to do now to help illustrate each one of these concepts further is I'm going to give you some more details about each one of these three. So I'll do them one at a time. I'll talk about the age factor percentage first and how we arrive at that age factor percentage number for you. So, excuse me. What we are looking at here is a sample age factor percentage chart. So what you're going to do here is you're going to find yourself on this chart by looking at your tier, the column for your tier, and then you're going to forget about all the other columns. So if you're a general tier 2 member, you just look at this column, you forget about the other columns. Safety tier 2B, you look at this column, for example. Okay. Now, the way this works is when we go to calculate your retirement, we're going to use a chart very similar to this, and it's going to contain these same numbers, but there will be more numbers. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay. Let's say that you're a general member, you're in tier 2, and you're going to retire at age 62. Okay, so we need to do that calculation for you. We pull up our chart, we come over here to general tier 2, we go down to age 62, and we see that the percentage is 2.09%. That is what we use in the formula for you. So we will take that 2.09% out, we would put in the formula, multiply it by the service credit and the highest average monthly salary, and that's what determines your retirement allowance. So that means that in that scenario, you would be getting as your retirement allowance 2.09% of your highest salary for each year of service. Okay, so you see that the percentage is dependent on your tier and what age you retire at. You'll notice that the percentages get larger the older you are when you retire, and that's why I said you're earning credit in this category simply by getting older. The older you are when you retire, the higher the age factor percentage will be. Up to a limit. There's a limit for each one of the tiers. And the limit is denoted in this chart by the blue box. So the blue box in the chart shows the highest age factor percentage you can get for your tier. If you retire at that age, like if you retire at age 65 as a general tier 2 member, you get 2.43%. If you retire at 66 or 67 or 77, you still get the 2.43% maximum age factor percentage. Okay. Now you're probably wondering, why are there a bunch of gaps in the ages? Why am I skipping like 3 years at a time? Well, that's because there are actually too many incremental increases in the age factor percentages to fit on the slide because they increase every 3 months that you don't retire. Another way to say it is every 3 months that you get older, you go up one notch in this age factor chart, and there's a slightly higher age factor percentage that you would get in the retirement formula for you. And it's based on your birthday. So to give you an example, if your birthday is January 15th, 3 months after your birthday is April 15th. 3 months after that is July 15th. 3 months after that is October 15th. And then back to January 15th, your birthday. So every time you pass one of those dates, you go up one notch in this age factor chart, and there is a slightly higher age factor percentage. And if you want to see the full age factor percentage chart, we have it out on our website at acera.org/age. Okay, so I think those are all the things I wanted to tell you about the age factor percentage. So let me move on to the second factor in the retirement formula, the years of service credit. You start earning service credit when you enter Acera, like I was saying before, on your date of entry. And you will earn service credit throughout your career all the way up until you terminate employment. That is when you stop earning service credit. And like I said, that's measured down in the fraction of a day. You earn service credit during your regular work hours. You also earn service credit during your earned leave times, including vacation, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. All of those types of time, you earn service credit when you go out on that leave. So when you mark that on your timesheet, you're earning service credit during that time. It does not count against you in terms of calculating your retirement. Okay, now there are some types of time where you do not earn service credit. One of them is leave without pay. If you're ever out on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit during that time. Okay, number 2 is when you purchase extra vacation. Some of our employers will allow that. You purchase an extra week of vacation. When you go out on that extra week of vacation, you mark that purchased vacation on your timesheet. You're not earning service credit during that week. But I would not sweat that, because if you purchase a week of vacation here or there over a long career, I don't think it's going to reduce your retirement allowance by very much. It'll probably be like pennies or 50 cents or $1 or something. So I wouldn't sweat that. Okay, so next item. You do not earn service credit when you sell vacation. So you take your earned vacation, some of our employers will allow this, and you sell it back to your employer for cash, which means you don't go out on a vacation, you're just looking for cash. You can do that. You do not earn service credit for it, but you may earn salary credit for it in the salary category. We will talk about that at length in just a minute when we move on to the next factor. Okay, so You also do not earn service credit during overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, now there's this thing that you can do called purchasing service credit. And what purchasing service credit does is if you have eligible time, you can't just purchase what they call airtime, which is, however much time you want. There has to be some kind of eligible time that maybe you could have earned service credit, but the situation was, you know, being what it was, you were not earning service credit, but then the law allows you to go back and purchase that as service credit. And so there's some examples listed out here. Um, these are just a few examples. There's a full list at acera.org/purchase. I'm not going to take a deep dive into purchasing service credit in this webinar, but I do that in the new employee/mid-career webinar. And if you want to check that out and see the full explanation of purchasing service credit, I recommend going after this webinar, going to our website, going to acera.org/seminars, and you scroll down and we have a bunch of YouTube videos. Every past webinar that we've done, there's a YouTube video linked up on there. And just go to the new employee mid-career webinar and fast forward through the YouTube video until you get to this slide, and then I will launch into the full explanation of the service credit purchase. But just real quick, this is an option for you to be able to do, like if you had some plain old part-time work, not under contract, not for a temporary agency, before your full-time job, or you worked for the county's temporary assignment pool, or you worked for your employer in some other capacity, like doing a project. You can purchase that. You can purchase that 2 weeks between your date of hire and your date of entry. Unpaid leave times, including unpaid medical leave, disability leave, military leave that you go out on during your active membership. Also, redepositing prior memberships if you used to be an Acera member in the past, and when you left your job, you took a refund of your contribution account, and then you came back, you can put that money back to get your service credit back. Also, other California public agency work. If you used to work for another public agency in California, it's possible that you can buy that time as a Acera service credit. And there's a full description of that at acera.org/purchase. One more type of time I'd like to mention is that it's not on here, but it's called a redeposit of community property, I think. And essentially what it is when you get divorced or dissolve your domestic partnership and your ex-spouse took part of your Acera account with them, they took part of your contributions and then a corresponding part of your service credit. If they take a refund from their account, we will let you know. We'll send you a letter and you can redeposit an equivalent amount of money and get your service credit back. And again, there's more information about that at acera.org/purchase. Okay, one more thing in this webinar that I want to really talk to you about is what happens to your unused sick leave, because everyone's always curious about this. So let me show you what happens to your unused sick leave. Okay, so if your plan is to go straight from active work into retirement, which means that there is no gap between your last day on payroll and your first day of retirement. There are consecutive days. We will convert your unused sick leave into service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. Essentially, you're going to get half of your unused sick leave up to a cap as additional service credit. Now, the cap is different for everyone. It's different by MOU. It's different by bargaining unit, basically. And so you have to find it in the cap in your memorandum of understanding, which is what MOU stands for. A lot of the caps for a lot of the MOUs limits you to 125 days of sick leave that is convertible to service credit. So let's do that as an example. Let's say that you have 130 days of sick leave on the books when you stop working and go to retire. Now, the cap for you would be 125 days. So that extra 5 days, we can't do anything with that. That just disappears. But then we take the 125 days you have on the books, we divide it by 2, and that gives us 62.5 days. And we give you that as extra days of service credit. Now, this is not calendar days, this is business days. So if you stretch that out over business weeks, that equals about 12 plus work weeks. So it's about a quarter year of additional service credit. This does not change your retirement date, this sick leave conversion. This just simply increases the amount of service credit that we would put in the formula for you, but your retirement date remains the same. And that's how that works. Okay, so we talked about the age factor percentage. We talked about the years of service credit. Now, let me tell you about how we calculate the highest average monthly salary, the third and final factor in the retirement formula. When you go to retire, because we need to do this calculation, highest average monthly salary, we're going to pull up our pension software, and our pension software is going to find your period of highest pay from your entire career because our software has all of your payroll records in it that your employer transmitted to us so we can do these calculations. So it's going to find your period of highest pay, consecutive highest pay from anywhere in your career. And this in pension lingo is known as your final compensation period. If you're in tiers 1 or 3, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on whether you're paid biweekly or monthly. If you're in tiers 2 or 4, your final compensation period is your highest 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. Essentially, for tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay. And essentially for tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. And so our goal to do the pension calculation again is to find your highest average monthly salary. We simply need to look at your total amount of pay during this highest year or highest 3 years and take an average. And we do that by simply dividing by the number of months in that time period, by the 12 months or the 36 months. And that gives us the average pay that you were making each month over that highest 3 years or over that highest 1 year. That is your highest average monthly salary. This another pension lingo. This is also known as final average salary. You'll hear if you interact with us at all, you might hear that as well. Final average salary. I think highest average monthly salary is more descriptive. Okay, so what types of pay are included in the highest average monthly salary? So the pay that is paid to you during your final compensation period that will be included is, of course, your base pay. That will be included. And for all of these types, just as an aside, for all of these types of pay, we're talking about gross pay before any deductions are taken out. Okay, so base pay, that is one of the types of pay included in the salary calculation for you. Also, you may have some other pay codes on your paycheck. These are sometimes called footnotes. And these are usually based on skills you have or education level, sometimes different languages that you might speak in the course of your job. And there are like 1,000 different pay codes, so I can't tell you off the top of my head whether your pay code counts or not. Some of them do, some of them don't. But you can find out for yourself by going to acera.org/paycodes and looking it up. You click open the PDF for your employer, and all the pay codes are listed there, and it'll say yes or no whether your pay code is in or out of this calculation. The one pay code I do know that never counts is overtime. And if you need help finding your pay code on that sheet, your payroll manager usually knows how to find it. Okay, so the last two bullet points that are included in as pay that we can calculate in your final compensation period are vacation sales and vacation cash out. Now, for this topic, we're going to spend a little time on this. And we're tier 4 people can't do this because whenever the state created tier 4, as of January 1st, 2013, they said that this was no longer allowed. Okay, so sorry about that. We can't include any vacation sales or cash out for tier 4 members. And additionally, for tier 3 members who work for LARPD, your employer doesn't allow you to sell vacation, so that disallows you from being able to include this as well. So sorry about that. Okay, so vacation sales and vacation cash out. Tier 4 members and tier 3 members, you can take a little snooze if you want, or if you're just curious about this topic, you can feel free to hang out. And we'll spend like, I don't know, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes on this. Okay, so here's how this works. Vacation sale is simply you take your earned vacation that you earn. You earn 2 weeks per year, 3 weeks per year, 4 weeks per year, and you sell some of it back to your employer for cash while you're still employed. That is called a vacation sale or a vacation sell. Okay. A vacation cash out is simply when you have vacation left over on the books when you retire that you have not used yet. You have your earned vacation sitting there in your vacation account that you haven't used yet. Your employer will cash you out for your vacation at that time. And that is called a vacation cash out, sometimes known as a vacation payoff. So, which means you'll get extra money in your final check from your employer. This happens at termination. Okay. So when you stop working, they cash you out for your retirement. And if you're going straight, I'm sorry, they cash you out for your vacation. And if you're going straight into retirement, it would be happening about the same time that you're terminating your job and going into retirement. Okay. Now, so what we're talking about in this discussion is any vacation sales that you make or you made during what will become your final compensation period when we calculate your retirement, and also the cash out that occurred, if any, at the time that you left work. And what we're looking at is a total of the vacation compensation between the vacation sales and the vacation cash out. So we're going to add it all together and be looking at your total vacation compensation between these two categories of being compensated for your earned vacation. So if these occurred during your final compensation period, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're working with here. Okay, now let's say that that happens. You sell vacation or you cash out vacation during that final compensation period. Well, what that means is that your total salary during your final compensation period was a little bit bigger. If your total salary was a little bit bigger during that period, that means your average salary, when we calculate that, your highest average monthly salary, was a little bit bigger. Because your highest average monthly salary is one of the three multipliers in the retirement formula, that means that your retirement allowance that comes out of that formula is going to be slightly higher. The bottom line here is that selling your vacation or cashing out your vacation, so getting compensated for your unused earned vacation, increases your retirement allowance at the time of retirement and every month for the rest of your life. When we calculate your retirement at the beginning, we would include that as pay for the purposes of calculating your highest average monthly salary. So I was saying, I was using the term, it will increase your retirement allowance slightly. Well, what do I mean by that? Here's a chart of approximately how much getting compensated for your earned vacation would increase your retirement allowance based on how many weeks of vacation you get compensated for. So, for example, if you're in tier two and you get compensated for 4 weeks worth of your earned vacation, either through selling it or cashing it out or a combination of the two, that would increase your retirement allowance 2.6% at the time of retirement. If it was 6 weeks worth of vacation compensation, it would increase your retirement allowance by 3.8%. So you can see that you get a pretty decent little boost here to your retirement allowance at the time of retirement, and that is for the rest of your life. For tier one members, it's accelerated because of the shortened final compensation period. Okay, so you'll notice that I use the word approximate here. This is just kind of a rough guideline. It's not going to be exactly this, but I just wanted to give you some context for why we're talking about this, because people have some unused vacation or they have some vacation that they've sold and they're wanting to know, like, how does this affect my retirement? Well, it increases it by approximately these amounts. Now, there is a cap on how much vacation compensation a SARA is allowed to include in your highest average monthly salary calculation. And this cap is defined by law. And you'll notice the word must here. A SARA must include it because what the law tells us is that this is your pay. This is your compensation. This compensation is pensionable or compensation earnable, whatever the term is for your tier. And we have to use this as compensation for calculating your retirement. The reason I'm stressing this is because people have been arguing about this through the courts for many years. This didn't used to be included. Some employees in Ventura County many years, decades ago, sued the county, and that whole thing, started this, and it's worked its way through the courts, and now it's pretty much settled. We know what we're doing, and the caps are all settled. Okay, so there's a cap on how much vacation compensation we must include. And I also just want to, the reason I'm kind of talking about this is some people who don't have pensions might have some judgments about this, but this is just how the state and the courts tell us to calculate it. So this is how we have to do it. And because this is how we have to do it, I should explain to you how it works so you understand exactly how your lifetime pension is being calculated. So that's why I'm going into so much detail about this. Okay, so let me help you figure out what the cap is going to be for you because everyone is going to be slightly different. It's based on your situation. Okay, what you're seeing here is one of the sections on that retirement planning worksheet at acera.org/worksheet that and you can use this to calculate what your cap on vacation compensation is going to be for the purposes of us including it in your salary calculation. The first thing I'm going to do is talk to Alameda Health System employees because your calculation is a little bit different than everyone else. You're going to use this section labeled Alameda Health System employees. And what you need to know is one number. You need to know how many hours of PTO you earn per pay period, paid time off. Alameda Health System employees, their sick leave and vacation leave is all in this one combined bucket called PTO. And if you look, I believe it's on your pay stub every pay period. And you look and you see whatever that number is for you, and you plug it in to the worksheet here. Okay. So in this example, this person earns 6.7692 hours of PTO per pay period, each and every pay period. You plug that in, and then if you're in tier one, you multiply that number by 13, and that gives you your limit in hours. If you're in tier two, you multiply that by 39, and that gives you your limit in hours. So this is the maximum number of hours of vacation compensation that Acera is allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. So if you're a tier two member and this is how much PTO you earn and you have 264 hours of PTO on the books, when that gets cashed out for you and you get paid for that, we will include all of that compensation as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement allowance, and your retirement allowance will be higher. Okay, there's one exception. The people in the UAPD union, you have a flat rate. You don't have to do any math. If you're tier one, your limit is 120 hours. If you're in tier two, your limit is 360 hours. Okay. So nice and easy, no math involved. Okay, that's Alameda Health System. Now, let me describe how this works for the county employees and the employees of, I think there's two other of our employers that you can do this with. Let me check on that real fast. Okay, yeah, it's Alameda County employees, court employees, and housing authority employees. This is a section on your retirement worksheet for you. So this is the one you're going to be looking at. Now, to determine your cap on vacation compensation, you need to know two numbers. You need to know how much vacation you earn per year, and it's measured in weeks. In this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year. Maybe you earn 4, or maybe you earn 3, whatever it is for you, you plug that in here. Okay. You also, the second number you need to know is how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year. Your employer has a rule somewhere. It might be in your employee handbook or in their policies somewhere that says how much vacation they will let you sell of your earned vacation. In this example, this person is allowed to sell 2 weeks of vacation per year. So each year that they earn 5, their employer will let them sell 2 weeks of that 5 back to them for cash. Okay. Now, so you need to know those two numbers, how much you earn and how much you're allowed to sell if you were going to sell it. Now, you don't necessarily need to sell it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You just need to know how much you're allowed to sell. You plug those two numbers here. Okay, now, if you're in tier one, you only need to fill out the first two columns. I mean, the first column, the first two rows in the first column. If you're in tier two, because you have a 3-year final compensation period, we need to look at each individual one of those 3 years of your 3-year final compensation period. So you need to fill out the rest of the table with how much vacation you were earning at the end of each year, basically each third of your highest, your final compensation period. Now, your final compensation period, if you recall, is based on your highest pay period. So it's not the calendar year, it's not the fiscal year. You basically take your retirement date if you're earning your highest rate of pay at the end of your career, and you basically subtract, you go back in time 3 years. And that normal, for most people, that's your final compensation period if you're working full time. If you're not working full time, if you're working part time, your final compensation period is actually going to be a little bit longer because we will look for the equivalent of 3 full-time years of pay. And we'll take all of those more pay periods and smash them together to get what the equivalent of 3 full-time years of pay is. So actually going down to part-time work during that final compensation period does not count against you in terms of us doing the salary calculation. That's just a little aside here. Okay, so you're plugging in how much vacation you're earning at each one of those 3 years, at the end of each one of those 3 years of your 3-year final compensation period. Okay, for the payable, you're plugging in how much you're allowed to sell. Now, these numbers don't change a lot, but if a contract, bargaining unit renegotiates their contract, it's possible this number could change over that 3-year period. But usually they're all the same. Okay, so you plug those all in. Now, we need to go use the calculator out on our website to determine what your limit is, and we're going to plug in all these numbers. So what you do is you go to our website. Actually, you just go to your browser. Type in acera.org/vacation. And that link is out on your worksheet. acera.org/vacation. And that will take you to this explanation right here. You're going to pop open this accordion for Alameda County Courts and the Housing Authority. And you are going to use this calculator. You plug in the numbers. So in that example, it's the tier 1 member earned 5 weeks per year. They're allowed to sell 2 weeks per year. And you can see it gives a running total of the limit of cash vacation compensation that we're allowed to include in your salary calculation. Now, if you're in tier 2, of course, you want to select tier 2, and it will give you the opportunity to put in numbers from the whole chart. In that same example, that person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year. They're allowed to sell 2. See, it's giving a running total as I plug in the numbers. Now, the math here is not actually that complicated, and you don't actually have to use the vacation calculator because I'll tell you how it works. It's taking the lower one of these 2 numbers from each one of these years, and it's adding them together. So the lower of 5 and 2 is 2 in each case. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So that's how that works. If I increase this to 4, the lower number is 4 here. 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 8. So that's just how that's working. Okay, so in this example, this person's maximum weeks of vacation compensation includable as salary for the purposes of calculating their retirement is 6 weeks. Going back to the presentation, we are going to plug that in. Sorry about that. We are going to plug that into the worksheet. 6 weeks. Okay, so now we know what your limit is. So whatever it turned out to be based on your numbers, this is your limit in weeks. Okay, so now what do you do if you're thinking about maximizing your retirement by selling vacation or cashing out vacation? How do you think about this? Well, we know what your limit is. We're not allowed to include any more than 6 weeks worth of vacation compensation as salary for calculating your retirement. So one option that you have is you can simply have 6 weeks of vacation left over on the books. Don't worry about selling any. Sell 0. 0 plus 6 is 6. And you reached your limit. and we will include 6 weeks of vacation compensation as salary when we calculate your retirement. So that's nice and easy. Okay, there's a slightly different scenario that some of you may be in, where you may have to sell a little vacation if you're trying to maximize this. Let me show you what that is. So in this example, this person is a tier 2 member because they're filling out the whole chart. And for tier 1, it's easy. You really don't have to strategize about this. You don't really have to sell vacation. You just cash out, whatever up to your limit, and you're golden. For tier 2, it's a little more complicated because of this rule that I'm about to share with you. This person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year. They're allowed to sell 3 weeks of their vacation each year if they want to. Now, their employer has this. Oh, and when we go to the calculator, the vacation calculator that I just showed you, their limit of vacation compensation that we can include as salary for calculating their retirement is 9 weeks worth of vacation compensation. Because the lesser of each of these two numbers, 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. Okay, now their employer and all of your employers have this rule, this extra rule. They will not cash you out for more than 2 times your accrual rate. That's it. It cuts off at 2 times your accrual rate. Okay, so for this person, they earn 4 weeks of vacation per year. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times their annual accrual rate is 8. They cannot get cashed out for more than 8 weeks. Okay, so they can't get up to their limit of vacation compensation simply through the cash out. If they had 9 weeks on the books when they stopped working, that extra week would just go poof. It would disappear. They would get nothing for it. They would not get paid for it. They would not get salary credit for it for calculating their retirement. So that's actually not a problem because all you would need to do is know this in advance by attending this webinar and hearing this explanation and just sell that extra week that you can't cash out to get you up to the 9 in this example. So you would just sell the difference. You cash out what you can up to 2 times your accrual rate, and whatever is left over to get you up to your limit, you sell that while you're still employed. And so that's what this person did. They sold 1 week of vacation while they're still employed. They cashed out 8. That got them up to their limit of 9. Okay, now some of you may ask, what happens if I already sold a bunch of vacation? Like, let's say that I already sold 5 weeks of vacation. What do I do? Well, you have 2 options. That's totally fine. You have 2 options. Option number 1 is you would just cash out the difference. So you already sold 5, and those 5 weeks of vacation were sold during what is going to become your final compensation period. You know your limit is 9 in this example. You just cash out the difference. 5 plus 4 is 9 to get you up to your limit. Option number 2 is you could cash out more, and that's perfectly fine, up to 2 times your accrual rate. It's okay. So in this example, 2 times their accrual rate, of course, is 8. So they can cash out up to 8. And what this means is that while they're still employed, they're selling 5 weeks back to their employer of their vacation. They get 5 weeks worth of compensation. That is cash that goes into their bank account. At the time of retirement, they had 8 weeks on the books of vacation. They get cashed out for that. That's 8 weeks worth of pay that goes into their bank account. So they were paid for a total of 13 weeks worth of vacation. We can only include 9 weeks worth of that 13 as compensation, as this cash vacation compensation for calculating their salary retirement. That's fine. That's what the law tells us to do. But it doesn't mean that you get less cash. You still get the cash for all the 13 weeks. It is you getting paid for the vacation that gives us the numbers in our database to do this calculation. Okay, so you keep the cash for all the 13. 9 weeks worth of that vacation salary we will include as compensation for calculating your retirement. Okay, before we welcome back the tier 4 members, are there any other questions on this? Because I know it's a lot to throw at you. And when the laws are passed, it's all legalese, it's complicated. So I try to break it down as simply for you as possible to help you understand it. But let me know if you have any more questions on this. Okay, it's a question that just popped up. Okay, so the question is, you're in tier two. You can sell back 3 weeks per year, and you do sell back 3 weeks of vacation every November. Can you cash out 8 additional vacation weeks, or be given service credit, or should you make sure that you are taking it before you're retiring? Okay, so let me ask you, um, how much vacation do you earn per year? And you earn 4 weeks per year. Okay, so you're actually this example that we're looking at. You earn 4 weeks per year, you're in tier two, and you're allowed to sell three, and you do sell three. Now, are you making your highest rate of pay at the end of your career? So is your final compensation period going to be at the end of your career? Yes. Okay. So that means that whatever you have on the books is going to be under consideration. What that you get cashed out for is going to be under consideration for this. Okay. So this is basically like your example here, except in your case, you've been selling back 3 weeks. So you have 9 here. So you've already reached your limit. You will have already reached your limit. So you can simply cash out 0 if you want to. Like you don't even have to worry about that because you've already reached your limit. And you could, if your employer will let you, you could take that 8 weeks of vacation or whatever. Let me see. How much do you have? Um, how much vacation do you have saved up currently, or how much will you have saved up at the time that you retire? Approximately. Okay, so you're near your cap, which is about 8 weeks. So yeah, what this slide is like almost exactly your scenario, except for you have sold 9. So yeah, if you want to, you can cash out the 8, not worry about it. Or yeah, you could, if your employer will let you, be on vacation the last 8 weeks. I mean, I'm not sure what governs that. I'm not sure if they can stop you from doing that, or I don't know if you have to make a deal with them to do that or how that works. But if you are able to be on vacation the last 8 weeks, you're still on payroll, you're just taking that vacation and exhausting it, um, then that's perfectly fine, and you would get 8 more weeks of service credit. So yeah, you can definitely do that. Now, I would definitely make sure to run your benefit estimate based on what your projected, go in, log into your account on our website, do the benefit estimator, and I'll show you all some screenshots of this in a few minutes. You do the benefit estimator, and then you look at the pay periods because it will show you a list of the pay periods it's using to calculate your retirement, and make sure all of that vacation, all that 9 weeks worth of vacation are in those pay periods, and then you're golden. That brings up another point that I want to make because some people ask, is it better like if you're in a scenario where you're not maxed out on everything, you're not maxed out on how much you sold or how much you could cash out, and you're thinking of choosing between selling and cashing out, um, you don't really need to sell unless you're in this scenario where you can't get up to your limit from um, getting cashed out alone. Like in the previous example, this person, they can get up to their limit just fine. 5 times 2 is 10. They could cash out up to 10, and we would use 6 weeks of that 10 for calculating their retirement. And then you wouldn't even need to worry about selling any. And that's pretty much the easiest thing to do. Um, and also, I will say that for you in tier two, there is a very slight benefit to having the weeks that you get cashed out for be the ones that we use versus the ones that you sold, because you're probably making a slightly higher rate of pay at the end of your career, the end of that 3 years, than you were when you sold that vacation toward the beginning of your final compensation period. I don't think it makes a huge difference for the hassle it takes to think about it. I think you would probably get more of a boost by simply, uh, going back to your example of the question um, that I'm answering. I think it would be more of a boost to get that 8 extra weeks of service credit. Okay, and then your follow-up question. So I could cash out 8 weeks or get 8 weeks of service credit. Yeah, you could. Either way. Either way. Some people also ask, is it better? Because there is that issue of if you're selling or cashing out your vacation, you're not earning service credit for it. Which is better to get salary credit, like we're doing here, or service credit? And it's way better to get salary credit. Like this, doing the vacation seller, vacation cash out boosts your retirement allowance way more than getting a few extra weeks of service credit would boost. In case you all were wondering. Okay, so I think we covered that. Okay, tier 3 and 4 members, welcome back. Sorry that we have to delve into the details of that, but um, I feel like it's important for the people affected by that to know what the details are. Okay, so what you're seeing here, the next slide, is a list of limitations on your retirement allowance. Now, most of you will not hit any of these limitations, but I do like to show you what they are just in case. The first one is that your retirement allowance can't be more than whatever we calculate your highest average monthly salary to be, which means that your retirement allowance cannot be more than 100% of your highest average monthly salary. The idea here is that it's trying to make it so that you're not making more in retirement than you were making as an employee. And that's mostly true, except for, as we just learned, your highest average monthly salary could be a little bit higher if you sell vacation or cash out vacation. But ultimately, that is what this does. It limits your retirement allowance to your salary. Um, Most people do not hit this. You have to work 35, 40 years usually and be of a certain age to hit that 100% cap. If you do hit the cap, it's actually not bad news. It's good news because you're going to be making in retirement exactly what you were making as a salaried employee, which is amazing. And that means you worked a long time, and thank you for your long public service. Okay, so there's two more caps in here. These ones for people with really high salaries. Most people don't have high salaries like this, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. But you can read the details of that on your own. There's more details at our website, acera.org/limits. And I recommend, if you do have those high salaries, going and reading those details. The last one I want to cover is for tier 4 people. If you're a tier 4 member, the amount of your salary that we are allowed to use to calculate your retirement is capped. And the cap is in annual dollars. And what you're seeing here is what the cap is for 2024. So if you're a general member and your annual salary is more than 151,446, then when you hit that point in the year where you make that much money, like maybe let's say it's in October, for the rest of the year, we actually will not take out retirement contributions. And that gives you more money in your paycheck to save in your 457B account or in your personal savings if you want. But the law does make it so that we have to cap the annual dollars that we use to calculate your highest average monthly salary by whatever the cap is when at the time of your retirement. These numbers go up every year. It's based on the Social Security wage index limit that the federal government calculates every year, and you can see that the safety number is a little bit higher. Okay, at this point, let me show you how to get a precision retirement. Well, let me show you how to get two ways to estimate your retirement. I'll show you the ballpark estimate way and the precision way. Um, and because we've been talking in general up to now about your retirement allowance, let's talk specifically. What's your retirement allowance going to be? What you're seeing here is a spot on your retirement worksheet. This is the Get a Ballpark Estimate section. It's on page 1. This is a way to just get an idea, a rough idea of what your retirement allowance is going to be. But it also does this other thing where it shows you the percentage income replacement you're achieving, um, which I find interesting, and people use that for retirement planning. Okay, so let me show you how to do this. First off, in this example, what you do is you think of what age you're going to retire and you put that in whole years. And this person's going to retire at 58. And in this scenario where you're retiring, how many years of service credit will you have by the time you retire? And do that in whole numbers. So this person's retiring at age 58 with 29 years of service credit. Then you're going to go out and find where those two intersect on one of these um, salary percentage, salary replacement percentage charts. These that we have, and you can go to acera.org/ballpark, or you can navigate to it. I'll show you how to do that. So again, here's our homepage. Under the first column, members, you pick the third selection, planning your future retirement income. And this actually shows you 4 ways to get an estimate. We're just doing the first 2. The first one, option number 1, you pop open that accordion and you press the button for your tier. So let's say this person is a general member in tier 2. That means they're in tier 2A. I'm going to press that button. It's going to open this PDF. And this is where we have multiplied all of the age factor percentages by all of the years of service credit to show you the percent of your highest salary that you're going to get in retirement in each one of the scenarios. In the example that I'm doing, this person is retiring at age 58 with 29 years of service credit. So I just find out where those two numbers intersect. They're going to get 50% of their working salary as their retirement allowance, 50.03%. That's where those two numbers intersect. One thing that I find interesting about this is that you can see the effect of working another year or working 1 year less by simply going diagonally up the chart. If this person worked another year, they would replace 54.5% of their salary with their retirement allowance. That means that their retirement allowance is 54.5%. And so if you just go diagonally, you can see the effect of more or less years of retirement. But in this example, they're replacing their working salary with 50%. They're 50% of their working salary with their retirement allowance. So then we go back to the worksheet. We plug that in. And then because this is a ballpark estimate, you can just kind of think about how much money you make per month and you just multiply it by that percentage, and that gives you a rough estimate. Okay, that's the ballpark way to do it. Let me show you the precision benefit estimator. This is another section on the retirement worksheet. And all you are doing here is you are thinking of your plausible retirement scenario. And if you are going straight into retirement, so you're thinking about your separation date and your projected retirement date. Your separation date is your last day on payroll. Your projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. And if you're going straight into retirement, those would be 2 consecutive days. So you can write those in on your worksheet, and then you go out to our website, acera.org, and you click the login button. And I'm not going to show you the login screens just for efficiency, but once you log in, you're going to be at this account summary screen, and you're going to press estimate a benefit. And this is our benefit estimator tool, and you're going to plug in those 2 dates. So I'm going to zoom in here, and in this example, this person is retiring in March of 2030. On their separation date is the 15th of March. Their retirement date is the next day on the 16th. Now, if you're not going straight into retirement and you're gonna terminate your employment and retire at a later date, that's fine. Just plug in whatever your scenario is. You hit calculate. It's going to make a projected amount of service credit for you, projected service credit amount. And this is based on how much you've already earned and then how much it is projecting you will earn in this scenario that you're doing. It's also doing a salary projection for you based on what it already knows about your salary. You can override both of those numbers if you want. Like if you happen to know that you're going to buy some service credit, you could override that. And the way that you do that is if you're going to buy like you're going to want to convert it to years because this is measured in years. So let's say you're going to buy 3 months worth of service credit. Well, that's about a quarter year, 0.25. So you would take 0.25, add it to this number, and then put that grand total in the override service credit field. And then you can increase the salary as well if you want. If you want a nice conservative estimate, you don't override these. You just leave them alone. Okay. And I'll show you in just a minute how to use this hours of cash vacation compensation field if you like to see what the impact of um, vacation compensation is on your retirement allowance estimate. Okay, so then you can put in beneficiary information here. You hit get estimate. Now, what you end up with is this. This is a retirement benefit estimate PDF. You can print it out. You can save the PDF on your device, and it is giving you a benefit estimate for each one of the 5 retirement options. Well, 4 of the 5 of them, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And let me see. I don't have a zoom in on it yet. Um, and so this is your precision retirement benefit estimate based on your scenario. Now, if you are curious about using this box here, and you're curious about seeing what the effect of cashing out vacation hours is on your benefit estimate, because if you add vacation to that, these numbers are all going to go up. You can do that. Let me show you how to do it without overestimating, because the main way that you might overestimate is if you've already sold vacation, that's already being taken into account in this salary projection. Um, so let me show you how to do it without overestimating. And I have organized this calculation in another spot on that worksheet that is titled How to Calculate Hours of Cash Vacation Compensation for the Online Benefit Estimator, parentheses, without overestimating. Okay, so step 1, you run an estimate and you leave that hours of cash vacation compensation field blank. And you look at the average salary date range on the estimate PDF. Okay, so we're going to do, let me see, how are we doing this? Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is if you are working for the county or the courts or what was the other one? The other one that was not Alameda Health System. I think it was was it the Housing Authority? Let me see. Yeah, Housing Authority. Alameda Courts or Housing Authority. We calculated your limit of cash vacation compensation in weeks. All you do is transfer that number over from the other spot on the worksheet. Okay. So going back to the worksheet, it's on page 2. All you do is you take the number from here and you stick it over here. Now, if you're Alameda Health System, we already know what your limit is in hours, which is the calculation that we're trying to do. So you just take your number and you plug it in right here. Okay. So for the people who are not Alameda Health System, you take that limit, you put in your weekly work hours, you multiply them, and that gives you your limit in hours. Okay. So now we know what your limit is in hours. What we're going to do is subtract out any hours that you sold. So you go to that estimate that you ran where you left the hours of cash vacation compensation field blank, and you go down to page 2, and there will be more pages, page 3. And you look at this list of all the pay periods it's using to make the salary projection, and you see if there's anything in the column that says sold vacation hours. If there is, you're going to want to plug those hours into this worksheet and subtract them out. So let's say that when I go to this worksheet, I see a 40 in here. It says I've sold 40 hours during my final compensation period. So I'm going to plug that in here and I'm going to subtract it out from my limit. And my limit is now 200 hours. So that's what I would plug in here. And then I could hit get estimate. And now my retirement allowance estimate will be bigger. Okay, so let me give you another example. There was a person who asked the question, it may have been during the break time, about you're just going to have 3 weeks worth of vacation compensation on the books when you retire and you want to see what the impact of that 3 weeks is. You want to get an estimate of that, which is under your limit of 6 weeks. So what you would do, you hadn't sold any vacation, so you just take the 3 weeks and you multiply it by the number of hours you work per week. Let's just, for the example's sake, let's say it's 40. So that's 120. So in your case, you would plug 120 in here. So you only want to plug in the hours of cash vacation compensation that you want to see what the impact of getting compensated for that vacation would be on your estimate. So that's how that works. Anyway, so this is your retirement benefit estimate. I'll just zoom in here. It shows you a estimated number that is your monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life for 4 of the different 5 options. Later on, I will describe in detail what each one of these options do. But for right now, you can kind of just look at the unmodified option and you could plug that in here because the unmodified option pays the most of any of the other options. And when I say plug it in here, that is on the worksheet. Alternatively, if you don't want to use the worksheet, you could just simply take this retirement benefit estimate, save it on your device. Because it tells you what date you ran it and it tells you, what the scenario was. Or you could print it out. Or you could print this out, print out the worksheet and staple them together. Or, however you want to do it, however you want to keep track of the numbers that you're learning in this webinar. Okay, finally, so I showed you 2 ways to get a retirement benefit estimate. There's a third way, and that is having us do it for you. You can fill out a retirement estimate request on our forms page. Let me just tell you that when you do this, there's a waiting period because there's a queue for this. And you go into the queue, and it will take a while for one of my colleagues to do the calculation. And they're going to use the same software that this uses. So it's going to be the same result. So I recommend just using the online estimator tool, and that it takes 5 minutes and you can do it 24/7 and you don't have to wait. But you do have this option. Okay, so next topic. Let me help you verify your retirement eligibility and tell you when you're actually eligible to retire. If you're watching a pre-retirement webinar, you probably already know you're eligible to retire, but let's just verify that. We're talking about this milestone on the pension milestones chart that we were talking about, that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. So this is the first day that you are eligible to retire if you want to retire on this day. And like I said, there's some combination of years of service credit and age that gets you to retirement eligibility. So what are those combinations? I'm going to show you the combinations for tiers 1, 2, and 3 first, and then I'll show you tier 4 on the next slide. For tiers 1 through 2 and 3, you have 3 different ways of achieving retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is that you are at least 50 years of age, and you have at least 5 years of service credit and at least 10 years of membership with Acera. Now, these tiers closed over 10 years ago, so anyone who's in tiers 1, 2, and 3 already has 10 years of membership with Acera, so you don't really even have to worry about that. You just have to have at least 5 years of service credit and be over age 50, and you can retire. Or you can retire under option number 2 if you're a general member with 30 years of service credit, or as a safety member with 20 years of service credit at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Or option number 3, you can retire with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than 5 years, at age 70. So if you had 4 years of service credit, you could retire at age 70 and draw your lifetime pension. Okay, so pretty basic, right? Now, if you're in tier 4, here are your 2 combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is that you're a general member and you're at least 52 years of age, or a safety member and at least 50 years of age, and you have at least 5 years of service credit. That makes you eligible to retire. Option number 2 is you're at least 70 years of age and you have any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years. You can retire and draw your lifetime pension. Okay. So that's actually a pretty short topic. I imagine that all of you are eligible to retire. If you want to write your retirement eligibility date or type it into your worksheet, you can do that. If you know you're already well eligible to retire, the retirement eligibility date isn't super important, so you could skip that. Okay, so next topic. Let's talk about choosing your retirement date. This is a pretty important topic because you're going to choose your retirement date. Nobody's going to choose it for you. You tell us when you're going to retire. And again, on the pension milestones chart, it's this date. We're going to talk about 6 different things in terms of choosing your retirement date. And I'll talk about each one of these in detail. So let me just do each one at a time. Number 1 is, will you have enough income to retire? Now, this is purely optional. You can do these calculations if you want. This stresses some people out. Some people are fine doing this. Some people you're just ready to go and you know you're ready to retire, so you're just going to do it regardless. But you can kind of get an idea of will you have enough income fairly quickly if you run that a Sarah retirement estimate. If you understand, you open your deferred compensation account if you have one, and you understand how much money is in there, and you understand how much you should, how many, what percent distribution you should take each year. And Gene Hilliard, during the deferred comp presentation after this presentation, will tell you more about that. And then you go to Social Security website, and you do their estimator. And so you get all these estimates to determine what your income is going to be in retirement. You can also think about post-retirement expenses if you want and compare your income versus your expenses. That's kind of extra credit. Or you can just go by this shorthand way of doing it, which is that financial planners will say that to maintain your standard of living in retirement, you're going to need 70 to 80%. Most of them say 80%. 80% of whatever you were making before retirement, you're going to need 80% of that income to maintain your standard of living. So all you do is you see how much of your Sarah retirement is getting you up to that 80%. If you can see how much Social Security is going to get you up to that 80%. And any gap, might be taken, filled with deferred comp, or maybe not. But, this is kind of just something to think about leading into retirement. Are you achieving the 80% income replacement? Or another way to think about it is, is your income going to be enough dollars to maintain your standard of living if you're going to think about your post-retirement expenses? Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, and you know what, if you want more, like if you want to delve into that a little deeper and a little more detail, what I recommend doing is you go out to our website. We actually have a whole website post on that. You can either go under members and go down to preparing to retire, or you can just go down to this berry colored section, ready to retire. And you can select estimate your retirement income. And this takes you step by step through doing what I just said, which is you get the estimates. It gives you links for everything for your Sarah pension estimator, for the Social Security estimator. It gives you a login. It's not Prudential anymore. It's Empower. I need to change that. Sorry about that. And so it takes you on a step-by-step process. So that's one option if you really want to sit down and crunch those numbers. Okay, number 2, in choosing your retirement date. You may want to, depending on your situation, think about the age factor percentage increase dates. So we're going to revisit this topic in a way that we talked about at the first part of the presentation. Remember, I told you that the age factor percentages increase. Let me see if I included that slide. Yeah, here it is. The age factor percentages increase with every quarter of your birthday if you have not yet achieved the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. So let's, for example, say you're a general tier 2 member and you're younger than age 65. Okay. That means every 3 months that passes, and it's based on your birth date, that you get a quarter year older, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. So If you have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, you're going to be cognizant of what those dates are. So to give you an example, your birthday is January 15th, okay? 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th. 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th. 3 quarters after your birthday is October 15th. Okay. Now let's say that you are thinking about retiring on July 14th. Well, you can see that you probably don't want to do that because if you retired on July 15th, you would go up one notch in that age factor chart and you'd get a slightly higher age factor percentage. It would be anywhere from about 1% to maybe about 1.9% increase in your retirement allowance at the time of retirement just by passing that day. So it's kind of important to know what these days are. So it's the same thing for each one of these days. So if you are younger than the maximum age for your tier, then you're just going to want to think about these dates when you retire and don't retire right before one. I'm not saying that you have to wait to pass the next date. Like if you were trying to retire halfway between July 15th and October 15th, let's say you're going to retire August 30th. I'm not saying that you got to wait until October 15th to pass that date and retire. I'm just saying that if you're going to retire in the fall and maybe you're going to retire, you're thinking about October 1st, maybe wait it, you know, wait it out a couple of weeks, work another couple of weeks, retire on October 15th, and then you get a 1 to 1.9% increase in your retirement allowance, okay? So just be aware of what these dates are for you based on your birthday. Okay, the third thing that you're going to want to consider when choosing your retirement date is the cost of living adjustment date, maybe. But let me tell you more about the cost of living adjustment since we're already talking about it. This is an annual increase to your retirement allowance. It's one of the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits. The increase percentage is based on the consumer price index for the Bay Area, which is a measure of inflation that is calculated by the federal government. So basically, if prices go up from December to December in the Bay Area by a certain percentage, that's what the CPI is indicating. The CPI is 5%, for example. Prices went up 5% December to December. That becomes the cost of living adjustment percentage that we're looking at. And everyone who's in retired status on April 1st gets the cost of living adjustment for that year. So if it's your first year of retirement, as long as you're in retired status on April 1st, even April 1st could be your first day of retirement, you would get the cost of living adjustment for that year. Now, if your first day of retirement is April 2nd, you're going to miss the cost of living adjustment for that year. But then next year comes around and you're going to get the cost of living increase that April 1st and every April 1st for the rest of your life. Okay. Now, there's a caveat here. There, like as there always is, there is a written into the law, there's a maximum annual cost of living increase we can give you based on your tier. If you're in tiers 1 and 3, the maximum is 3%. Tiers 2 and 4, the maximum is 2%. So in the scenario I was telling you where the CPI is a 5% increase, what happens to those extra percentage points? We will save those for you in what we call a COLA bank, unofficially called a COLA bank. And those percentage points are going to sit there in your COLA bank and they will accumulate every time inflation is higher than what the COLA we're allowed to give you. And then at some point in the future, if inflation is less than the maximum percent, like let's say 1 year it's only 1%, well, then we will take percentage points out of your COLA bank to add to that 1% to get you up to your maximum. And you don't even have to think about that. You don't even have to remember that that exists. We're going to do it automatically for you. The bottom line kind of is that since inflation is on average a little bit higher than 3% in the United States per year, if you've been retired for a few years, you tend to have accumulated percentage points and you tend to just get the maximum 2% or 3% every year. Okay. Now, that's how the cost of living increase works. So many people who are already retired, they're thinking about retiring in the spring, they will strategize their retirement based on April 1st because they know that they're ready to retire in the springtime and they know that If they retire on or before April 1st, they're going to get the cost of living increase for that year. If they retire on April 2nd or like for the rest of April or even in May, they probably won't make as much of a retirement allowance as they would have had they retired right on or before April 1st. Now, this will, of course, correct itself eventually after a couple, 2, 3 months, because if you don't retire on April 1st and you work another 3 months, you earn more and more service credit. You pass another age factor percentage day, and then your retirement allowance will be more than it would have been if you retired on April 1st. But there is this period right after April 1st where it would have been more advantageous for you to retire in March, basically. And that's why March is our biggest retirement month, because we're basically retiring like 2 months worth of people all packed into 1 month. Um, but there's nothing really magic about April 1st. Like if you're going to retire in the winter or the fall or the summer, you just retire when it's convenient for you. And then when April 1st comes around, you'll get the cost of living increase. Okay, now for a few people, you're going to be looking at a dilemma between the age factor percentage and the cost of living adjustment. I always used to get this question, so I made a slide about it. In this example, this person's birthday is January 15th, and they're a general member, they're age 54, which means that they are younger than the maximum age for their tier. So every quarter year, their age factor percentage is going up, every quarter year that they don't retire. And they're going to retire in the spring, and they're thinking, should I retire on April 15th, which is 1 quarter after their January 15th birthday? And in that case, I would get the age factor percentage increase, but I would miss the cost of living increase I would have gotten had I retired on April 1st. Or should I retire on April 1st? I'll get the cost of living increase, but I will miss the age factor increase I would have gotten had I worked another 2+ weeks and retired on or after April 15th. Which do I do? Well, you probably already know the answer because I already gave you the percentages. But what you do is you look at whatever the cost of living increase is going to be that year, and we always know it in early February. I don't, we, so what are we in January 11th? We don't know it yet. We're going to know it in early February. We posted that on our website. If the cost of living increase is the maximum, you would go with the cost of living increase because you're going to get a 2% increase or a 3% increase versus the 1 to 1.9% increase you would have gotten had you retired on April 15th. If you don't like, if math does not appeal to you, one of the things that you could do is you could just run two different retirement estimates on our website, one for April 15th, one for April 1st. On the April 1st one, you're going to have to increase it by the cost of living adjustment. So you take your retirement allowance, you multiply it by 1.02% to increase it, and then you compare the estimates for both. That's the way that you would do that. This is only if your birthday lines up this way. Like, let's say your birthday was December 15th. Well, 1 quarter after your birthday would be March 15th, and then you could get both. So this doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. If you're going to retire, like I said, in the September or whatever, there's not really a dilemma here. This is only for people retiring in the spring who kind of have this dilemma. Now, your birthday is May 17th, so in your case, is it better for you to retire April 15th or after your birthday? Now, you're not looking at April 15th because your birthday is May 17th. So again, this was just an example. The example was a birthday of January 15th. So in your case, you're going to plug in this. Your birthday is May 17th. So 1 quarter after your birthday, let me subtract 3. So what we got? May, we go April, March, February. So February 17th would be your date. So if you're going to retire in the spring, you would want to retire on or after February 17th, but on or before April 1st in that window. And that would give you both the age factor percentage increase and the cost of living increase. So that's how that works. Or you could retire May 17th. You could go to the next age factor percentage. So in that case, you would earn all the service credit between April 1st and May 17th, which is maybe 2 2/3 month. I'm sorry, 1 2/3 month. So that you'd get that much more service credit. And then in the age factor percentage column, you'd get a 1 to 1.9% boost. So I don't actually know whether it would be more advantageous in that case. It's a little up in the air to retire May 17th versus April 1st. In that case, you would definitely want to run those two estimates on the website. Do one for May 17th, do one for April 1st. On the April 1st one, you would increase it by 2% if you're in tier 2 or 3% if you're in tiers 1 and 3, and compare the two numbers. There's another question. If you retire in December, how does the COLA work? Do you get a COLA on April 1st of the following year? Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. So do you get a COLA on April 1st of the following year? How does the math compare to a 12/31 retirement date versus a March 31 retirement date of the following year? Okay. So yeah, if you retire in December, you start collecting your retirement allowance in December, and it's whatever we calculate it to be at that time. Then April 1st comes around a few months later. Your retirement allowance then goes up by whatever the cost of living adjustment is for that year. And you get that larger retirement allowance for the rest of the year until next April 1st, and then it goes up again. So that's how that works. Now, if you're comparing December 31st retirement to a March 31st retirement, you would probably want to run two estimates of that. Go to the benefit estimator, run two estimates, and see what the increase is between December 31st and March 31st. The March 31st one is going to be higher because you're going to have 3 more months of service credit in there. And plus, you will probably have passed an age factor percentage increase date as well, if you're younger than the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. Okay, next topic. And again, we're still under the umbrella topic of choosing your retirement date. The fifth thing that you're going to want to think about when choosing your retirement date. And this is if you're planning on going straight from active work into retirement because you want us to do the sick leave conversion to service credit for you. So it's important to understand this concept. It's not a complicated concept, but it's just important to know about this. The way that you go straight from active work into retirement is by having your last day on payroll and your retirement date be on 2 consecutive dates. Another way to say it is that your last day on payroll is the day before your first day of retirement. Another way to say it is your first day of retirement is the day after your last day on payroll. This day, your last day, and this is just an example that I'm showing you on the calendar. You don't have to retire on Friday, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. You don't have to, retire on Saturday and have your last day on payroll be Friday. What this is showing you is your last day on payroll is also known as your last day of work or active employment or your termination date. Okay. Now, this date is the day that you write on your letter of resignation to your employer. And we have a letter of resignation template out on our website that you can use. And it will help you plug in this date. So that's what you put on your letter of resignation. This date, your retirement date, this is the date that you put in on your retirement application to Sarah. Okay, so these should be two consecutive dates right next to each other. And that means that you are going straight from active work into retirement, and we are doing the sick leave conversion for you automatically. You don't have to think about it. We'll just do it for you automatically, and you'll get that service credit boost. Now, if there's any gap here, the reason I'm so strenuously explaining this is you don't want to have a gap here. You don't want to stop working and then have your retirement date be like the next week. What if it was on like the 30th? Well, there's a few days in here. Or even if it's on the 26th, there's one day. That one day, you were a deferred member. And if you spend any time as a deferred member, you lose all your sick leave. Okay. So that's why I'm stressing this. It's not that complicated. You just have these on 2 consecutive days, and we will do the sick leave conversion for you. And as an additional note to this idea, if you're trying to do this, you're going to want to retire on a day after you're scheduled to be at work. So that day should also be a non-holiday. It's okay if you're on leave the last work day. Okay, so this day you could be on vacation leave, it could be a floating holiday, you could be on management leave, uh, whatever, sick leave, whatever. It's okay. As long as you're still on payroll, you still have a job. This is your last day of work. Um, that's fine. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that to give you an example, let's say that you work Monday through Friday. So you work Monday through Friday. Now, you could choose your retirement date to be any day, Tuesday through Saturday, because the day before Tuesday and through Saturday, you are on schedule to work. You wouldn't want to choose your retirement date to be Sunday or Monday because you don't normally work Saturday or Sunday. So that's how that works. Now, for some of you, you don't have a regular schedule like that, Monday through Friday, usually because you work in law enforcement or healthcare. So for you, you may want to pick a retirement week. And then when it gets closer to the time, you can see what the schedule is, and your first day of retirement can be a day after you are on the schedule to work. Okay. And that's how that would work. Now I see a question up here. You no longer work for the county, you're at CalPERS. Okay, so for you, just as a side note here, if you're already a deferred member, so you're a deferred member with Alameda County and you're an active member with CalPERS, um, all your Alameda County sick leave already disappeared. So you don't even have to worry about these last 2 points on choosing your retirement date. Okay, so to your question, if you choose March 28th, which is a Friday of 2025 as your last day of work, and March 31st, Monday as the retirement date, is that the right strategy? Well, that would be fine for us in terms of us, but you would have to see if CalPERS also has a sick leave conversion thing, if they have similar rules. I mean, CalPERS kind of has completely different rules from us, but you would want to check with them on that. And if they have similar rules to us, maybe you would want to choose March 28th as your last day on payroll and March 29th as your first day of retirement, which would be a Saturday. Or like you're saying, you could choose your last day of work as March 27th, a Thursday, and your first day of retirement March 28th, which would be the Friday. But yeah, like I said, you already lost your Alameda County sick leave. Sorry about that. I don't know why they do that. It must be an incentive to like a, you know, one of those incentives to keep people working in their jobs, um, is probably the explanation for that. Oh yeah, so you're asking Saturday is not a work day, that counts as a retirement day. Yes. Your retirement day does not have to be a work day. It can be any day of the week as long as you were scheduled to be on payroll the day before. In the case of you're trying to go straight from active work into retirement. So if you're trying to go straight from active work into retirement, in every case, these 2 days should be consecutive days. And the day before your retirement date, you should have been on schedule to work. So those are the two rules around that. So I hope I explained that well. Okay, now back to the retirement worksheet. Now that we know some more about your projected retirement date, you can double check whether you want to keep your projected retirement date you penciled in, or if you hadn't penciled it in yet, you could pencil it in now. And if you're trying to go straight into retirement, all you do is you take your projected retirement date, subtract 1 day, make sure it's a day you're scheduled to be on payroll, and you can write that in on your worksheet as well. Let's talk about the process of applying to retire as our next topic. Okay, so what does this look like? Step number one, we want you to go through our preparing to retire section on our website on your own. So sorry, step number one is like go here and there's all these sub steps, but that's kind of how it is. But let me show you that section of our website because you've actually already accomplished a lot of the stuff on this page. So I showed this to you once again, but I'll show you how to get there. There's two ways to get to the preparing to retire section. You go under members and you go down to preparing to retire. Or you can simply scroll down under ready to retire and click prepare to retire. They both go to the same place. This is our web page that has steps in chronological order of either information we want you to understand or things we want you to do. You've already done some of this stuff. Verify your retirement eligibility. We already did that here. Consider purchasing service credit. That's something you can explore. Understand how vacation pay affects your pension. We already went through that. It took us like, 15 or 20 minutes to go through that. So you've already checked that off. Estimate your retirement income. If you've already done that, you can skip that. Attend a pre-retirement seminar. You're doing that right now. So you can see that you've already done a lot of this stuff. But there's a few more things we want you to go through. The last two steps on this are to schedule a ready to retire counseling session and apply to retire. I'll show you those now. Okay. So that's step number one. Step number two is to set up a ready to retire counseling session. And you do that by submitting this form on our website in the 3 to 6 month period before your retirement date to fully prepare. Now, if you haven't done this yet and you're already within 3 months of retirement, don't sweat it. You can still do this. Or if you just are, you just feel like you already know everything, you don't need to go to counseling, that's fine. We don't require it. We suggest it. But here's how to do it. Okay, so back to the preparing to retire page where we left off. The second to last step is schedule a ready to retire counseling session. You click on that, or you can just visit acera.org/counseling. And this is just simply a quick form that you fill out. You give us your information, you hit submit. Okay, so this gets the wheels turning. We will contact you and we will set up your ready to retire counseling session for the 3-month period prior to your projected retirement date. And you will meet with a counselor. You can do it virtually on Zoom if you like. I think that the vast majority of people are doing it on Zoom these days, but you could also do it over the phone or you could come in and do it in person. And so that's your counseling session. Now, prior to your counseling session, we will ask you to submit your retirement application and your counselor will go over it with you. You can submit your retirement application within the 90-day period before your retirement date. So whatever your retirement date is that you're going to write down on the application, you can submit the application within that 90-day period before that retirement date. Okay. And submitting the retirement application is actually the very last step back on the preparing to retire page. So you go to applying to retire. It takes you through some things to make sure that you've already done some stuff, which you've already done. It explains the retirement options to you, which I'm about to explain to you. And you get down here to step 4, your retirement, your electronic retirement packet is right here. You click on the DocuSign form, fill out the retirement application, submit it electronically. On the application, what you are writing down, the two of the most pertinent pieces of information is your retirement date, and you're selecting one of the 5 retirement options on that application. Okay. You hit submit. Your retirement application goes into our system. We log that in. We relog your retirement date into our system. Once that date passes, your retirement date passes, and you've already applied to retire, you're retired. It's going to be amazing. You have earned it. You've been working a long time in public employment, and you deserve it. So I'm really excited for you all. It's just going to be like the greatest thing. Okay. So yeah. Once your retirement date passes, you're retired. So congratulations. And I really appreciate all of the public service that you have all done for Alameda County. So now back to your worksheet. We know what your projected retirement date is, and we know when you should submit the ready to retire counseling form. You simply subtract 6 months and write that date in. Okay, keep track of that. Put it in your calendar. Now, what to expect in retirement. Your first retirement check will come 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer paycheck. If there are any major issues with your file, we will start submitting you retirement payments anyway, but they will be an estimated 80% payment until we resolve the issues. And then we'll get you up to 100% payments. That mostly doesn't happen these days. 99% of people are straight away on their 100% payments, just because we revamped our process like 5 years ago. Okay, so let's talk about the retirement allowance options. There's 5 of them, and it's good for you to understand what they all do because you are going to have to make a choice between these 5. You're going to have to pick one, and you do that on your retirement application, and you can't change your mind later. There is one scenario where you do the regular retirement, which we call is also known as service retirement, and then but you already know that you are going to submit a disability retirement application. If you're awarded the disability retirement later, and these can take up to a year, I think in that case you could go back and change your retirement option. But in every other scenario, you only get the opportunity to choose your option at the time of retirement on your retirement application. And once your retirement date passes, that's that. Okay, so let me explain to you what each one of these does. And for each one of the 5 options, the unmodified option and options 1 through 4, I'll show you one slide that is like a wall of text, but I'll break it down for you. Okay. The top, the heading is going to is going to tell you what the option is called, and kind of like the subheading tells you what it does for your beneficiary. Okay. And in the table, the top row is going to tell you things about your retirement allowance as an ACERA retiree that, because you're going to, again, collect your monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life. The bottom information is about what your beneficiary will be eligible to receive after your death. Now, your beneficiary, that word just means somebody who gets benefits. And your ACERA beneficiary is the person you designate to get your ACERA death benefits after your death. Okay. So, let me jump right into the unmodified option. This pays to you, the ACERA retiree, the maximum amount of any of the retirement allowance options. This is the one that the vast majority of people select just because it pays the highest retirement. Okay, now, after your death, this will pay a 60% monthly continuance to a qualifying beneficiary. If your beneficiary is your spouse, your state registered domestic partner, or your Alameda County domestic partner, it's a lifetime benefit. The word continuance, that just means a continuing monthly payment. So your retirement allowance is this monthly payment that you're getting every month, and then there's your death, and then the continuance is a monthly payment every month for the rest of your spouse's or domestic partner's life. You have to have married them or registered them with the state in the case of a domestic partner, or filled out the affidavit for the county in the case of the Alameda County domestic partner at least 1 year before your retirement date for them to qualify for this 60% continuance. And if you do submit a disability retirement application and you're awarded that, it's more than a 60% continuance, it's 100% continuance. Okay, so if you select the unmodified option, but you don't have a spouse or domestic partner, but you do have a minor child or minor children, you can designate them as your continuance beneficiary. But it's not a lifetime benefit, it's temporary, and it will stop at age 18 unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, and it can't continue until the age 22, at which it will cut off. It will also cut off if they get married or register a domestic partner with the state. Now, there is a last bit of information here. Alternatively, maybe you don't have a spouse, domestic partner, or minor children, but you still want to select the unmodified option. Great, perfectly fine. Lots of people do that. I think, like I said, the vast majority of people select the unmodified option. You can still name a beneficiary, but not for a continuance because you don't have a qualifying beneficiary for that. You can name a beneficiary for a lump sum payment, and it's a one-time payment that they will get. And it's basically when after your death, we give them back the balance of your contribution account. So it's all of your employee contributions that you paid into Acera throughout your entire career, plus all of the interest that we've paid onto that money that it has earned by us investing it, minus all of the retirement allowance payments that we've made to you as a retiree. And I'll tell you that if you die after the first 3 to 5 years of your retirement, which hopefully you do, hopefully you have a long retirement and you live a long time, um, there will be no balance left in your contribution account to pay out to a lump sum beneficiary. Okay. So that's kind of the bad news. The good news is what the implication of that is. That means that as a member of a SARA, as a person who has earned a pension with the SARA, everything that you paid into the retirement system throughout your entire career, plus all the interest that we have paid on top of that throughout your entire career, we are going to give you all that money back through retirement allowance payments within your first 3 to 5 years of retirement. Everything after that is like this amazing, it's almost like a bonus that you get by participating in a pension plan. But it's not really a bonus because that's just the way pensions work. That's the way the whole thing is set up. Instead of having a finite amount of money that can run out, you have a guaranteed payment every month for the rest of your life that will never run out. And it's a payment that you can estimate in advance and you can plan your retirement based on that estimated payment. And that's the whole idea behind a pension. So everything after that first 3 to 5 years that you're going to get as your retirement allowance comes from the employer contributions, but mostly from the investment earnings. 75% of your lifetime pension comes from the investment earnings. Okay, so that's just a little aside. That's just my little enthrallment with the way pensions work. So going back to what happens if you choose the unmodified option and you choose the a lump sum beneficiary. Yes, if you die after the first 3 to 5 years, there will be no balance in your contribution account. There will be some other amounts that they get. They get the $1,000 lump sum death benefit. They would get a partial month payment of if like let's say you died on the 20th of the month, that's 20 days worth of pension that we haven't paid you yet. We would pay it to them. If you sign up for our healthcare plans, you pay those premiums in advance. We would refund those advance premiums to them. So there would be some other amounts that would go to them. Okay, now there's a final thing that I want to mention on the unmodified option. Excuse me. Maybe you chose the unmodified option, and at the time of your retirement, you had a continuance beneficiary. Let's say you had a spouse that you named as your continuance beneficiary. You retire, you start collecting your retirement, and your spouse dies before you do. In that case, you can name a new beneficiary, but not for a continuance, only for lump sum payments. So the only opportunity for you to name a continuance beneficiary is at the time of retirement. If your continuance beneficiary dies before you do, you can only name beneficiaries for lump sum payments thereafter. And that goes for all of the 5 different retirement options. Okay, so that's a lot of information about the unmodified option. The other ones are a little bit simpler. So let me look at, there's a couple of questions up here. Let me get to those. Okay, the first question is regarding reciprocity. So just really quickly, um, you have a reciprocal agreement between Acera and CalPERS. Oh, and it sounds like you're the person who is deferred with Acera and you're currently working under the CalPERS job. Okay, so that's great. And then your CalPERS salary, it sounds like it's higher. And so your question is, will Acera use the CalPERS salary? Yes, we will. That is one of the 3 benefits, and perhaps the most powerful benefit of reciprocity is that all of the agencies linked together use the highest salary earned under any of the agencies that you have earned retirement under. Okay, next question. Yeah, you are welcome. Absolutely. This is kind of complicated, and I'm not sure I can give you the answer 100%. The question is, you're going to take a service retirement and you have a pending disability retirement that gets approved after your service retirement date, which is a very common scenario. A lot of people, because you're permanently disabled, you can no longer work. You go ahead and take the service retirement so that you can stop working, and while you're waiting for the pending disability retirement application to go through. Okay, now your question is, how does this affect buying service credit for medical leave? Normally, the rule for buying service credit for unpaid medical leave is that you have to pay for all of the service credit that you want included in your retirement by the time you retire. So that's the only deadline for purchasing service credit is you have to do it by the time you retire. Now, to your question, I'm not sure if you retire under your service retirement and you have a pending disability application, if you get more time to pay for that, that would definitely be a question for my colleagues. So I recommend emailing us at acera.org slash contact uh, or calling us at 510 628 3000. I think I gave out the wrong number earlier. So whoever I typed in the number to, I think that was the wrong number. This is the right number, 510 628 3000. Okay. So back to these five retirement options. So that's the unmodified option. Now let me tell you about each of the four other options. These are options 1 through 4. Option number 1 is called a lump sum to a beneficiary. The reason people choose this is because this is the only one of the options that leaves no continuance to any beneficiary ever. All of the other ones have a continuance option that you can leave a continuance to a beneficiary. This one, you choose a beneficiary, they're only eligible for a lump sum. And the reason that you might want to do this is because you don't have a spouse, domestic partner, or minor children to name under the unmodified option. And you want to leave, so you're going to name a lump sum beneficiary. Option number 1 only pays slightly less than the unmodified option. And what it does is it extends the time that it takes to exhaust the balance of your contribution account from 3 to 5 years to 10 to 12 years. So if you were to die within the first 10 to 12 years after you retire, then there would be a balance left over in your contribution account to pay out to a lump sum beneficiary. So that's the reason that people select option number 1. Okay, option number 2. This, instead of paying 60% to a beneficiary, this pays 100% to a beneficiary. That's the first thing that it does. Okay. 100% monthly continuance to a beneficiary. The second thing that it does, the second major thing that it does is that you can name anyone as a beneficiary for a lifetime continuance. It's still only one person, but you can name anyone. Under the unmodified option, you can only name spouse, state registered domestic partner, Alameda County domestic partner, and minor children. The option number 2, you can name anyone for 100% monthly continuance. Okay, now there are some caveats. Your retirement allowance is going to be reduced from what it would have been under the unmodified option, and the calculation is based on the life expectancy of your beneficiary. So whoever you name for the monthly continuance, their life expectancy is calculated based on actuarial tables And if they have a long life expectancy, we're going to have to expect to pay them that 100% continuance longer. Then that's going to be a much sharper reduction to your retirement allowance that we're going to pay you as a living Acera retiree. And all of this is calculated at the beginning, at the time that you retire. So we go ahead and do that reduction and calculate your retirement allowance based on who you're naming as a beneficiary. And if your beneficiary dies before you do in retirement, we don't recalculate your retirement allowance. And that is true with all of the options. We don't ever recalculate your retirement allowance. Whatever it's calculated to be at the time of retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus cost of living adjustments. Okay. So you can choose option two and you can leave 100% payment to a beneficiary. That means whatever your retirement allowance was at the time that you retired, including cost of living adjustments, your beneficiary would then start getting that same amount as their monthly lifetime continuance. They would get that amount plus cost of living adjustments every month for the rest of their life. Okay. There is another caveat here. If you are naming somebody who is not your spouse and who is more than 10 years younger than you, the IRS actually will limit this benefit, and we may not be able to leave 100% continuance. It might be slightly less, like 95% or 94%. There's a whole table that determines this, and your counselor, retirement counselor, will talk with you more about that if that's the case for you. And then there is a question, please clarify what an Alameda County domestic partner is. Is that a domestic partnership formed and lodged with Acera, the county recorder, your employer, or what? That is something that is specific to Alameda County. Alameda County lets you sign an affidavit and say that you have a domestic partner who lives with you, who is your life partner, and then they can access the county benefits like healthcare benefits as if they are your similarly to if they were your state registered domestic partner. And it makes it so that you can do that without having to register a state domestic partner. And if you have done that, if you have signed that affidavit with Alameda County, that's your Alameda County domestic partner. And it turns out, and this is a kind of recent change. It turns out that Alameda County domestic partners, and when I say recent change, it's like a recent revision that our legal counsel made. It turns out that they have the same rights regarding to benefits as state registered domestic partners. So that's the answer to that. And thank you for that question. Okay, so that's option number two. Option number three is the exact same as option two, with the exception of how much it pays to the beneficiary. Instead of paying 100% to the beneficiary, it pays only 50%. Oh, you're quite welcome. Thanks for your question. It pays only 50% continuous. And you can maybe you can see where this is going. This is paying less to the beneficiary, so this will actually pay you more as a retiree. You will get a higher retirement allowance than you would have gotten under option two because the beneficiary is only getting a 50% continuance. And all the same rules apply as option two. Your beneficiary can be anyone, etc. Option number four. This one gives you a lot of latitude to determine what your beneficiaries will get. Okay. This allows you to specify an amount to one or more beneficiaries. This is the only one of the options that lets you leave a lifetime continuance to more than one beneficiary. So you can specify a dollar amount or a percentage to one or more beneficiaries. And again, the beneficiaries can be anyone. So this is very similar to options two and three, except you can name more than one life beneficiary for lifetime continuance. And you can specify whatever percentage you want up to the equivalent of 100% combined. So let me give you some examples. You have an adult child who you cannot name as for lifetime continuance under the unmodified option because that's not one of the options here. You look at option number two and you say, Oh, I'll leave them 100% continuance. And then you see what the reduction is to your retirement allowance, and you're like, maybe I'll leave them option number three, 50% continuance. And then and you look at the retirement estimate and you're like, that doesn't quite give me enough to live on. You could leave them under option four, a different percentage. You could leave them a 40% continuance, 35%, a 20%, a 10%, a 5%. Or you could specify a dollar amount. Or if you have two adult children, you could name both of them for a continuance. And you could give them each a 10% continuance. As long as combined it doesn't add up to more than 100%, you can basically do whatever you want here. Um, or if you have like a friend or some other relative or like whatever, as long as it's a person, you can't name a trust or a charity for a continuance. You can only name those for a lump sum, because a person who is named for a continuance has to have a lifespan. So that's what option number four does. Okay, so that's in general how these work. But you probably want to crunch some numbers on this and see like what it would be for your scenario. So what I'm showing you here again is a screenshot of the benefit estimator in your account at acera.org. You're doing your retirement scenario. You already hit calculate you already put your dates in and hit calculate. Now what you want to do in here is put in accurate beneficiary information. You may find that your beneficiary is already in the drop-down list here that you intend to name in retirement. So you could just select them from the list. But just make sure if you select them, make sure the dates of birth are correct because they're not always correct. And you hit get estimate. Okay, so again, this is the PDF retirement benefit estimate. I'll zoom in. And now that you have a little more understanding of the options, you can see some things kind of make sense here. So this column is your estimated retirement allowance based on, whichever option you select. You'll notice the unmodified option is the highest of any of the options. You'll notice option number one is only a little bit less than the unmodified option. In this example, it's about $7. You'll notice that option number three is more than option number two because it pays you more than it pays the beneficiary. You'll notice that the column that shows you what your beneficiaries would receive in a continuance after your death on the unmodified option, this number is 60% of this number. Option number one, you can't leave a continuance to a beneficiary. Option number two, the two numbers are the same because it's 100% continuance. And then option number three, this is 50% of that because it's a 50% continuance. So this gives you the concrete numbers for your situation, and then it kind of allows you to get an understanding of in dollar amounts of how the different options work. Option number four, there's so many different permutations that you can do that we can't really put it in the calculator. If you want to see different scenarios for option number four, you should talk to your retirement counselor about that during counseling. Okay, let me help you understand some other benefits, and I'm just checking the time because we have about 35 minutes left, which is a perfect amount of time to talk about the healthcare benefits. So that's good. We've made good time. Okay, so we've talked a lot about guaranteed benefits. Your retirement allowance, cost of living adjustment, the death benefits associated with the various retirement allowance options. Um, let's talk about non-guaranteed benefits. These are extra benefits that at some point in the past, Alameda County, I think it was in the 80s, they said, our retirees need an extra set of benefits to help pay for their life in retirement. And they started a reserve fund called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve. And this fund funds this extra set of benefits. Now, like I said, these are not guaranteed benefits, and it's based on how much money is in that reserve fund. Currently, the fund is the most sustainable it's ever been. Our board of retirement manages this fund. They determine what the benefits are. They keep track of it every year to make sure the fund is staying sustainable. So they set the benefit levels to keep the fund sustainable, and they determine who gets the benefits. But everyone who gets the benefits are all Acera retirees. Okay. So their rules are kind of outlined here in this table, basically who gets the benefits. And you'll see that this is a list of the 5 non-guaranteed benefits. The first one is a medical subsidy, which we call, our name for it is the monthly medical allowance, which is what MMA stands for. Excuse me, I apologize. You can see there are 3 different levels of the monthly medical allowance. There's also a dental subsidy to pay for dental care, vision subsidy to pay for vision care, Medicare subsidy, and a supplemental cost of living adjustment. You'll notice that all of the benefits require a certain amount of Acera service credit to qualify for them, except the bottom one, the supplemental cost of living adjustment. You qualify that for that in a different way, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you don't need any Acera years of service credit to qualify for that. All of the other ones start at 10 years of service credit. So the first level of the monthly medical allowance starts at 10 years, and there's 2 more levels at 15 and 20 years of Acera service credit. And this is Acera service credit only. Notice it says Acera service credit. Reciprocal service credit does not count here. Okay. And also the dental and vision subsidy and Medicare subsidy all are available if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit when you retire. Okay, so let me tell you about each one of these benefits. First off, I'll talk about the medical subsidy, which we call the monthly medical allowance. When you go to retire, you are not going to be able to participate in your employer's healthcare insurance anymore. I mean, you can for for a few months, like 18 months or 36 months, depending on the situation, with Cobra, but you probably don't want to do that because it might be cheaper to get healthcare through Acera. So Acera offers medical plans that you can enroll in, as well as dental and vision plans. So regarding the medical plan, you can enroll in a plan through Acera, and if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you can get the monthly medical allowance. If you have less than 10 years, you can still enroll in the plan, but you just are not eligible for the subsidy. Now, the monthly medical allowance, it is, again, a non-guaranteed benefit. What it does is it offsets the cost only for Acera-sponsored plans. So no outside plans. You have to get your insurance through Acera. We have group plan options, and it offsets the cost of the monthly premiums, which is the monthly cost of being enrolled in a plan. We have individual plan options. It not only offsets the premiums, but also copays and deductibles. The amount is set annually by Acera's Board of Retirement. So this is one of those areas where they look at the amount annually, and usually the way they're adjusting this based on sustainability of the reserve fund is they're deciding whether to increase it or not for the next year. So they'll make little adjustments here and there just to make sure everything stays sustainable. You, the retiree, you're responsible for any costs exceeding the subsidy amount, the monthly medical allowance amount. And this subsidy is only for your care, not for beneficiaries, survivors, spouses, former spouses, dependents, plus ones. But you can still enroll them. It's just that there's no subsidy for them. Okay, so what are the amounts that we're looking at for 2024? If you retire in 2024 and you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance amount, by having at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you would be looking at $317.69 per month to pay for your medical care. If you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit, you're looking at $476.53 per month. If you have at least 20 years of Acera service credit, you're eligible for the full monthly medical allowance, which is for this year $635.37. So think about those amounts because I'm about to show you the premiums for the plans that we have, and you can see how much of the plans the subsidy covers, like how much of the cost the subsidy covers. So here is a list of the plans first off. There's 2 sets here. You can see 2 columns, 2 kind of categories. We have non-Medicare eligible plans. And if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you would choose one of these plan options if you want your medical care through Acera. And Medicare, if you're not familiar with it, is the federal government's healthcare system where they pay the cost of your your medical care, and everyone's eligible for that at age 65. There are a few qualifying conditions that get you eligible before that, but most everybody becomes eligible for that at age 65. So if you are Medicare eligible and you're an ACERA retiree, you would be looking at choosing one of these options. There are two group plan companies, Kaiser and United Healthcare. And then we also offer individual plans through Via Benefits. So what I'm going to do is I will talk about the group plans first, the non-Medicare, and then the Medicare. And then I'll talk about how Via Benefits works for seeking an individual plan that is not like one of our negotiated group plans. How that works, I'll talk about that together because it's more efficient that way. And just to point out, our open enrollment is every year in November, but you going into retirement is a qualifying event for getting in one of our plans at that time. And we will get you right into a plan with no gap in coverage. So you will just come off of your employer's plan, and on your retirement date, you'll just go right into your ACERA plan, and your retirement counselor will help you do that. I'm just going to show you a few details of the plans. If you want the full details, we publish this 36-page guide every year. You can find it by going to acera.org/guide. And in retirement, you'll receive a paper copy of this in the mail every year. Okay, so first off, I'm going to talk about the non-Medicare group plans and what those costs are. So we have three options: Kaiser Permanente HMO, United Healthcare Signature Value HMO, United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO. These may look familiar because these are the exact same plans that the county has. And in fact, these are the exact same plans because the county negotiates these particular group plans for us. So the self premium you can see for Kaiser is $1,037 and change. For the cheapest plan, the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO, it's $957 and change. So if you remember back to the full monthly medical allowance amount, it was only like, what was it, $637? $635. So you can see that it doesn't quite cover like really anywhere near the full cost of being enrolled in one of these plans. So you end up paying the difference. You can enroll Self Plus One. You can enroll family members. The copays are $15. And you can see what all the monthly premiums are here. So these are the monthly costs for being enrolled in these plans. Now, the way that works is if you enroll in one of our group plans, and if you look at this crude illustration of your ACERA check stub, this is you'll see your gross retirement allowance, your gross pay on the ACERA check stub. Let's say that you sign up for the Kaiser Permanente HMO. Well, we will deduct the premium for you from your check as a convenience to you, that $1,037.76, and we'll send that over to Kaiser. It's just so you don't have to think about it. And then if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, this person's eligible for the full one, we'll put that back in the additions column, and then so you end up paying the difference out of your pension check. That's the way it works for our group plans. One side note that I want to mention here is all of these subsidies are paid to you tax-free. You do not have to pay income taxes on these subsidies. You will have to pay income taxes on your ACERA check because you contributed to the fund on a tax-deferred basis, so you will owe income taxes, but not on these subsidy amounts. Okay, so those were the group plan premiums if you're not yet Medicare eligible. Now, if you're an ACERA retiree and you are Medicare eligible and you and you live in the service area for the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan, you can choose this plan. And what this is it's called a Medicare Advantage Plan, and this works conjoined with Medicare to provide you a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone provides you. Okay, so you have to first enroll in Medicare, and then you enroll in the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan, and you achieve that higher level of coverage. And you can see that the monthly premium is way lower, $354.31, than the non-Medicare plans, and that's because the federal government is paying for most of the cost of the care. And another thing that I've done here is I have put in the 20-year monthly medical allowance amount just to illustrate how we pay the how we use the monthly medical allowance to cover the cost of this plan. Because you'll notice that if you just enrolled yourself, the premium is 354.31. Then the 20-year monthly medical allowance is 354.31. Well, that wasn't one of the three amounts, was it? 354.31? Nope. It is these two, the 15-year and the 20-year, are more than that amount. But the reason for that is because one of the rules of the monthly medical allowance is it only pays up to the amount of the self premium. So you don't get to keep the change. The good news is that if you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit, your out-of-pocket cost is zero. So this is essentially a free plan, as long as you have the 10 years of service credit to qualify for the monthly medical allowance. So for free, you get a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone. Okay. And then there's a question, if you have up on the board, if you have medical through your spouse, do you still get your monthly allowance? You don't. We don't have a share the savings program either. So what you would need to do is look at the cost of being enrolled through your spouse, if there's any, versus the cost of being enrolled in a Sarah's plans, and then compare those and maybe go with the cheaper one. Or another consideration is the company and the level of care. Um, I will say that this Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage is a very rich plan and provides a lot of benefits. And a different option is for you can enroll your spouse in this plan too, because you can see there's self plus one premium amounts. If your spouse still has access to healthcare, they could be on their healthcare and you could be on Acera's healthcare. That might be the cheapest option. So you'll have to run those numbers. There's a question up on the board. Can you enroll at any time? When you retire, could you go on your wife's plan? And then when she retires later, can you go on to the county's subsidized plans, these plans? And the answer is yes. And people do that all the time, especially if your spouse is continuing to work and her employer is subsidizing you all's health care. Then it might be more cost effective to go with that. And then once she retires, yes, you're correct. Her retirement is actually a qualifying event, and you could both get on a Sarah's plan at that point. And there's a 30-day window after she retires, of course. They always have those 30-day windows after qualifying events. But that's when you would want to get on our plan. Okay, so I failed to mention something about the non-Medicare group plans real quickly. You have to live in the California service areas, and the California service areas are um, it's based on zip code, but it's essentially the Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser, they have Santa Cruz. If you live in the service area, you can enroll in the plan. If you live outside the service area, you cannot enroll in the group plan. So if you live outside the service area, what do you do? Well, you can enroll in an individual plan. Okay, so I talked about the group plan options. Let me tell you about the individual plan options. And this is through a company called Via Benefits that we contract with. We've been contracting with them for many years to provide this service. So the question is, who can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan? Well, if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you can enroll as an Acera retiree if you live inside the US, but outside the group plan service areas. So if you live outside of the Bay Area, Fresno, Sacramento, Southern California, and Santa Cruz, you can enroll in a individual plan through Via Benefits. Like let's say you move up to Redding, that's outside the group plan service area. Or you move over to Nevada, that's outside the group plan service area, and then you can get an individual plan through Via Benefits. Now, if you are Medicare eligible, you can live anywhere in the US. And you can't, we don't, it doesn't matter. You could live in San Leandro and choose individual plan. You don't have to take the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. The only requirement is that you have to enroll in Medicare Parts A and B, and then you can and you can enroll in an individual plan. Okay, so what a little bit more about Via Benefits. What is Via Benefits? Via Benefits is a private health insurance exchange that we contract with to connect you with um, a plan that works, individual healthcare plan that works for you. They themselves contract with 100 different insurance carriers. They offer thousands of different plans in this one marketplace. And what you do is if you want to enroll in one of these individual plans, you either call them and you talk to one of their benefit advisors, or you can do it online. But their benefit advisors are certified and salaried and non-commissioned, so they don't get basically like a kickback from one insurance company over another. They just get a salary. So they're just going to narrow the plans down to what's right for you. So you can tell them where you live or where you're going to live, how much you want to spend, what level of care you want. You can even tell them what doctors you need to visit, or you want to make sure your doctor is on the plan. You could even tell them what medications you need, and they have a tool that finds you the cheapest Medicare Part D plan if you are Medicare eligible. Um, so uh, so that's how that works. They match you with a plan that's right for you. They'll narrow their thousands of plans down to just a few, and you can choose among those. The monthly premiums, though, depend on which plan you select, of course, and the benefits depend on the plan. And you can use the monthly medical allowance not only for the monthly premiums, but also for deductibles and copays for these individual plans. Okay, let me see. There's a couple of questions up here. So the question is, how can I evaluate the benefit of Kaiser Senior Advantage versus traditional Medicare via benefits? Like if we move, can we change from Kaiser to via benefits? Okay, so the way to evaluate the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan versus any of the via benefits plans is to go out to go to the your browser and type in acera.org/guide. And there is a more comprehensive chart that shows you what benefits the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan covers. And then whatever you look at from via benefits, whatever information they give you, you can compare those charts to see like what the different benefit levels are for the different types of care that you're seeking. So that's one way to do it. Um, you can also probably call Kaiser directly and they could give you information about the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. Um, and then the question is, if you move, can you change from Kaiser to via benefits? Yes. Moving is a qualifying event, and I can't remember exactly I think it's if you move at least 50 miles away, or if you move out of the service area for the group plan, that's definitely a qualifying event. So, let me see here. Okay, I think I'm telling you the wrong thing. Forget about the 50 miles thing. I think the only part that would make it a qualifying event is if you're losing healthcare coverage. Um, so if you were in the Kaiser service area, you signed up for the Kaiser plan, you moved outside the Kaiser service area, that's a qualifying event. Um, and then like San Joaquin County, I'm not exactly familiar with where that is, but you can. We do have a list of zip codes that may or may not be updated out on our website. Let me see here. How do you get to that? Who can enroll in health plans? Here we go, plan service areas. So we have this, if you go to acera.org/eligible, there is a list of zip codes. and that will tell you if the zip code is in the group plans or not. And you can also call Kaiser United Healthcare directly and see if it's inside the group plan service area. Okay, next question. How can I evaluate the benefit of Kaiser? Okay, we already did that one. And then, yeah, I'm not sure if Mariposa County, where is Mariposa County? Um, yeah, I'm not sure because it is kind of halfway in between Sacramento and Fresno. So yeah, you definitely want to check with the healthcare providers on that. Uh, yeah, you're welcome. Okay, next question. How is the Medicare subsidy different from the monthly medical allowance? Do you get both? Yes. And I'll get to that in just a few minutes when I talk about the Medicare subsidy. But yes, you can get both. Um, the monthly medical allowance pays for the cost of being enrolled, the premium to the insurance company for the cost of being enrolled in the plan. The Medicare subsidy subsidizes the costs that you pay to Medicare to be enrolled in Medicare, that you pay to the federal government. Okay, so we were talking about via benefits, and I was telling you if you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance and you enroll in one of these via benefits individual plans, what it can pay for. The way that we provide the monthly medical allowance to you is a little bit different in the via benefits plans because we can't just take the premium out of your check and send it to the company and then put the monthly medical allowance into your check because there's so many different carriers that we can't manage that. That's what we hire via benefits to do. They manage that for us by opening a health reimbursement account for you. So the way this works is if you enroll in an individual plan through via benefits and you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, a Sarah will take your monthly medical allowance dollars that you are eligible for and we will send it over to via benefits. They will put it in your health reimbursement account for you and it will sit there and wait for you. Okay, then you have your bank account here. Okay, so you enroll in a healthcare plan through via benefits directly with an insurance company. They help you out by doing that. You're going to have to pay that insurance company a monthly premium. So you pay that from your bank account. Okay, then you're probably going to use your plan. You're going to go to the doctor and you're going to pay a copay. So you're going to pay the doctor directly. Now you're out some money. What do? Well, you submit reimbursement claims to via benefits and they will pay you your monthly medical allowance dollars out of your health reimbursement account to reimburse you for your costs. Now, this is a very simplified version. They will actually help you set this up so that it all happens automatically with recurring payments automatically to the insurance company and recurring reimbursements. And then you just have to submit any individual costs like copays that you incur to them. And they have an app and you can do it on their website as well. The enrollment guide is not opening on the website, sarah.org/guide. It just opened for me, so I'm not sure what the difficulty is that you're experiencing. Um, if you want to, if you want to send me an email, I can just email it to you. Okay, so let's see here. One more thing about via benefits. If you're Medicare eligible, so you enroll in Medicare and you have at least 10 years of a Sarah service credit, so you're eligible for a Sarah's monthly medical allowance. Because, and you enroll in a via benefits individual plan, okay? Because those via benefits individual Medicare plans are so inexpensive, our Board of Retirement decided to set the monthly medical allowance amount a bit lower for those Medicare individual plans through via benefits. And what you're seeing here is a chart of those monthly medical allowance amounts. Now, they do track this every year to see if people are running out of money, and 90% of people who enroll in these via benefits Medicare individual plans have sufficient money to pay their entire medical expenses throughout the entire year. So these plans are pretty cheap. Oh, it didn't work from the Acera Publications tab. I'll have to fix that afterward. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Now one more thing on the medical. There was a question up on the board. Does Covered California cover any portion of the monthly medical costs for healthcare for non-Medicare eligible people under 65? Yes, that is an option. And if you are below a certain income level or in a certain income level, there are subsidies from California for enrolling in those plans. And so that is definitely an avenue to explore. We do have a little information about that in our enrollment guide. But what you would be doing, what you would be looking at is you look at our enrollment guide at acera.org/guide and you look at the costs of enrolling in our group plans. And if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, then you subtract that out. And so you compare that with, you go over to Covered California website and you look at their plans and then you compare costs. Um, and you can see it's possible that you will, based on your income level, you will find a plan through Covered California with the addition of their subsidy that is cheaper than whatever Acera can offer you with our subsidy, and then you choose one. But you can't use the monthly medical allowance for Covered California plans. And if you're looking at individual plans and you call via benefits, they will actually help you do that comparison. They will plug in all those numbers for you. You are welcome. Okay, let me talk about dental plans. Let's see, we got about a little less than 10 minutes left. Um, which is just enough time. Okay, so let me just make sure that our next presenter. Okay, okay. Okay, there we are. Great. Okay, so let me talk about dental plans. The way this works is if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to enroll in one of our dental plans, but it doesn't cost you anything for your self-care. So that's what this set of columns is telling you. And there's two plans. There's a Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. Delta Dental PPO is nationwide. Um, and Delta Care USA is just in California, I think. Now, if you enroll yourself in the Delta Dental PPO, for example, you would see, and you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit or a service-connected disability retirement, you would see 5105 come out of your check. We send that to Delta Dental for you. And then you would see 5105 go back into your check in the additions column, and it would cost you zero. Somebody's asking which is better, Delta Dental PPO or USA. I think Delta Dental PPO, this is just my wild guess, is that the PPO probably provides a higher level of care because it costs a little more. But you can compare those two plans in our enrollment guide at acera.org/guide. There is a spending cap in the PPO, which I think for this year is $1,900. But that's in the guide as well. And then you can enroll your family members, and what you pay if you enroll Self Plus One, for example, you $99.02 would come out of your check, 5105 would go back into your check. Okay, now if you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can voluntarily enroll in the plan, but there's no subsidy for you, but you can still enroll, and there's a different set of premiums that you would pay. Vision is very similar. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to enroll in the VSP standard plan, but it costs you zero. The self premium and the subsidy are the same amount. Now you can buy up into the VSP premium plan, which provides a higher level of coverage I think, for example, you get frames every 12 months with that one instead of every 24 months. Um, and so you can find those, again, details in our enrollment guide at acera.org/guide. Um, and if you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can voluntarily enroll in the vision plans. But again, there's no subsidy. There's a question up on the board. Is the dental benefit plan offered by Sarah the same as the county plan? It is not, because we negotiate our dental and vision plans directly with our carriers. Um, Unlike our medical plans, the county negotiates those group plans for us. We do the dental and vision directly with the carriers, so they're different plans. So you definitely would want to check the enrollment guide to see what the differences are in the plans. And then there's a question, is the plan paid premium paid 100% by the county? Um, well, if you're asking about the dental and vision premiums and you're asking if it's paid 100%, it is for the self premium, if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit. And then there's a question, is the dental benefit plan offered by Kaiser Senior Advantage the same as the county? If the Kaiser Senior Advantage offers any dental benefits, it's not like dental care, I don't think. For like the regular dental care, you have to enroll in dental insurance, like through Delta Dental. But there may be some dental care in there that is like emergency care, kind of, or if you need like dental surgery, uh, like emergency surgery or something, there might be something in there. But we don't offer a dental insurance plan from Kaiser Permanente. So if you want dental care through Acera as an Acera retiree, you're looking at these two plans, Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. You are welcome. Okay. The fourth non-guaranteed benefit I'll talk about, and there was a question up on the board about this earlier, is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. This is a monthly subsidy that helps you pay for the cost of being enrolled in Medicare. So what happens is you're retired, you turn 65, you go to enroll in Medicare. If you are a general member, generally you've paid into Medicare throughout your career, and Medicare Part A comes free for you, but Medicare Part B, it has a cost. Currently, the lowest cost, and there's different levels based on income. The lowest cost for any member that you have to pay to Medicare is $174.70 for 2024. Well, Acera has created this Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, and we will reimburse the cost of that for you. All you need to do is fill out our enrollment form one time and maintain enrollment in Medicare Part B, and you will start seeing $174.70 show up in your Acera retirement check. You have to have at least 10 years of Acera service credit to qualify for this. So at the time that you transition into Medicare, you need to remember to do this. In our educational materials that we will send out to you, you'll get a letter when you're becoming Medicare eligible. We will point you back to this and remind you to do this, because we don't pay the benefit retroactively, but it is a pretty good deal that you're getting an extra $174.70 in your check, and it offsets completely the cost of the lowest premium that Medicare Part B charges for you to be enrolled in that. And one more thing I'll say about Medicare is if you're a safety member, you can still enroll in Medicare even if you didn't pay into it throughout your career. It's just that Medicare Part A will also come with a cost to you. And yes, this is a different subsidy than the monthly medical allowance. So you can become Medicare eligible, enroll in Medicare through the federal government, enroll in, for example, the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan. You start getting all of your medical care through Kaiser. Medicare is going to pay Kaiser for most of the cost of that. Your cost is super cheap. And then Medicare is going to start billing you $174.70 every month. You pay Medicare for that. And we, after you sign up for this, will start paying you $174.70 in your Acera check. In addition, to the monthly medical allowance you get in your Acera check. So yes, you can get both. Okay, last non-guaranteed benefit, the supplemental cost of living adjustment. This keeps you at 85% of your original buying power in retirement, which means that if you ever lose to inflation more than 15% of your original buying power that you enjoyed at the time of retirement, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original buying power, and it will do that for the rest of your life, usually. So you can never lose more than 15% of your buying power to inflation. This is a really powerful benefit, and this is a really popular benefit whenever we survey our members about this. And if you're a tier 2 member, usually what happens is you're retired maybe 15 or 20 years, and all of a sudden, you're still getting cost of living adjustments, but they don't quite keep up with inflation. So your buying power gets eroded, and then at some point, maybe 15 or 20 years in the future, you hit that your buying power is eroded less, more than the 15%. So that's when the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original buying power. So that's how you qualify for this. This is available to all the Sarah members. The only thing that you do to qualify to get this is you lose at least 15% of your buying power to inflation. And that's recalculated every single year. Okay, this is the last major slide that I have. I just wanted to point out that these things exist. I'm not going to go into much detail about these. I just want to let you know that this information is out there. Um, so the first bullet point is about deferring your retirement. And I alluded to this a few times before. This is where you stop working your job, but you don't go straight into retirement. You retire at a later date. And when you do that, you become what we call a deferred member. You're not an active member. You're not actively paying into the system and earning service credit, and you haven't retired yet. You're just deferred. And you can retire out of deferred status. People do it all the time. It's perfectly fine. You probably are going to, before you become a deferred member, you're probably going to want to know a few details about becoming a deferred member, and you can find those on our page, acera.org /deferred. And then the second point is death benefits. So I talked a lot about the death benefits that you would receive, your beneficiaries would receive after your death if you die as a retiree after retirement. There are a set of death benefits that your beneficiaries are eligible for should you die before retirement. And if you want to read more about those, you can check out our death benefits page at acera.org/death. And it's a good idea to make sure that your beneficiaries are up to date at all times. And you can do that by logging into your Acera account. And it will show you who your nominated beneficiaries are. Okay, divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. Now, California is a community property state, and your retirement that you've earned while you're married or in a state-registered domestic partnership is considered community property that is up for division whenever you divorce or dissolve your domestic partnership. You're probably going to want to read our page on that if you're facing a divorce or a domestic partnership dissolution. And so that information is out on our website at acera.org/divorce. Disability retirement. I did not really touch on this at all, but if you become in your career permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, you can apply for disability retirement. And like I talked about earlier, you can actually go through the regular service retirement while you're waiting for the disability retirement application to process, because it can take a while. It could take like a year for the disability retirement process to finally complete. So there are tax advantages to being awarded a disability retirement. So that's definitely an avenue to explore if you are disabled and you're considering applying for disability retirement. Check out our page at acera.org/disability. If you're planning to work after retirement and you are going to work for anyone else who is not one of Acera's 6 participating employers, have at it. We don't care. You can go to work somewhere else, and we are going to consider you an Acera retiree and pay you your lifetime monthly retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Now, if you are going to come back and work for one of our 6 participating employers, there are restrictions and there are duration limits, and you're going to want to check those out at acera.org/working before you make any plans about working for one of our employers after retirement. And if you relocate after retirement, we always ask that you fill out our address change form, and that helps us change your address in our database so we can continue sending you our annual report, official correspondence, and the open enrollment packet that you're going to get every year in October. Okay, so we can skip over that. If you have any questions, feel free to call us. Let me answer one question about recommended browser for our website. I think Chrome always works really well. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Presumably our website works in every browser, but if it doesn't and you're having trouble, feel free to email me and tell me about that, and I will look into getting that fixed. But I always just use Chrome, and it always just kind of works. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so if you have any more questions, we are available business hours at acera.org/contact to email us, or at 510-628-3000 to call us. And feel free to call us or contact us at any time. We are here to answer your questions. We know how the system works. I know it's complicated, so just, send us whatever questions you have, and we're happy to explain it to you. And on behalf of Acera's Board of Retirement and Acera staff, we wish you a beautiful retirement. You earned it. Thanks for spending this time with me. Okay, so that marks the end of our Acera retirement portion. Now we move into the retirement portion that regards the 457B plan and the deferred compensation program. I highly recommend sticking around for this. It looks like I've eaten up about 6 minutes of Gene's time so far. Sorry about that, Gene. This is scheduled to end around 1 o'clock, so it's not a super long presentation, but Gene's going to tell you everything that you might want to know about the 457B plan leading up to retirement and in retirement. And even if you haven't signed up for a 457B account yet, there are some things in here that you might want to hear. So at this point, I will turn it over to Gene. Gene, are you there?
Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. We're going to do a share screen. Let me grab it. Boom, there. Let's see, slideshow. Take these notes out. All right, perfect.
Oh, we're seeing your notes.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started.
We're seeing your notes,
again,
Gene.
my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial
Hey,
Advisor
Gene, can you
of
hear me?
Emerge Financial Group, where you see my notes.
Yep.
Not good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Go.
Can you hear me?
Yep. I can hear
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, I'm Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company here in Oakland. We help our clients with financial planning. We do taxes. We do accounting for small businesses. A little bit about my background. I've been a licensed financial consultant slash stockbroker for the past 20 years, helping my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of children and grandchildren. And I'm also a certified retirement counselor. And as a retirement counselor, my goal is to help each and every one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. We were hired roughly, it'll be 15 years in June. We were hired by Prudential at the time, now Empower, again, to help with you guys with education surrounding retirement planning and offering investment guidance. Okay, so it's an honor, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you guys today. We're spending maybe 30 minutes really talking about retirement readiness. Are you ready for retirement? So let's get started. These are the touch points that I'm going to cover over the course of this presentation. We'll talk a little bit about Social Security, a little bit about your pension, deferred comp benefits, etc. But when you're thinking about retirement readiness, you start with big picture, your retirement income. How much money am I bringing in? How much Social Security? How much is my health care going to cost me, roughly, right? Do I have a budget created to that kind of fast forwards the clock so you can see what retirement looks like? And then we'll talk a little bit about, in big pictures, the psychological effects of retirement, right? So that's big picture, and then we'll dive into the details, investment principles, withdrawal strategies, where you're going to live, long term care, estate planning. Okay. But let's talk about retirement income. Where will your income come from? Well, you have Social Security. Many of you have Social Security. Now, I'm sure there's some maybe six sheriff deputies on the call, or maybe you work for a government agency that doesn't pay into Social Security. So that means that's going to affect your Social Security. But many of you probably have paid into Social Security, and you should expect a payment. Obviously, here you have a pension through a SARA. Many of you, I'm sure, have deferred comp in terms of retirement plans. Some of you may have maybe getting some income from investment properties, maybe property that you're going to inherit from your parents that's going to generate some income. And then some of you, or maybe you do a little work, and I don't discourage working a little bit in retirement. The only thing I take issue with is having to work in retirement. But if you want to do a little work, make a little extra money to keep yourself busy, knock yourself out. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. All right. So before you walk into your boss's office and you tell him or her to go fly a kite and that you're going to go retire, you want to stop and ask yourself these questions, right? Am I in a position to stop working? If I factor in a SARA, Social Security, can I pay my bills? Right? What are my expenses going to look like in retirement? Have I paid close attention to that? Do I know how much my health care is going to cost? Now, we all know if you do 20 years with the county, you'll get a maximum stipend towards your health care. Mike knows a little bit more than I do on that, but you'll get $500-600 to go towards paying for your health care. Now, I know when I first started working with county employees, all I kept hearing was, hey, you do 20 years, your health care is paid for the rest of your life. And then I come to find out that's not necessarily the case. There's a check that the county will give to you to go towards your health care, but may or may not cover it all. Okay, so those are some of the questions. These are some of the things you want to consider when you're thinking about retirement. All right, so let's assume, hey, you haven't put away enough money towards retirement to cover your bills. Well, this is where I would encourage you, put a little money in deferred comp. The IRS limit for 2024, if you're 50 and over, is a total of $30,000, at $30,500 a year. Now, if you're under 50, you can put away 23,500 to be exact. But if you're 50 and over, you can put away 30,500. Have even more money to put away? Well, you can max out an IRA. Traditional IRA, not through the county, but you can go to your brokerage company, you can go to your bank, set up an IRA, and then you might be able to write that off. Confirm with your tax person if you're looking to get that tax deduction. Have even more money to put away? Well, you have the option of taking advantage of what is called the 3-year catch-up. This is where the IRS will allow you to put away $46,000 a year for 3 years before retirement. So if you have some money sitting idle in the credit union, not earning a whole lot, here's an opportunity that you can take advantage of by putting that money into deferred comp and taking advantage of what is called a 3-year catch-up. Okay. Now let's talk about Social Security. Some people feel, hey, I'm going to have Social Security. That should cover the bulk of my retirement. Maybe not. Okay, so let's talk about Social Security. And here are some examples of what your average annual salary is or was over a 35-year, 40-year period, and what you can expect in terms of a Social Security benefit at full retirement. And I'll just direct you to 65,000. Let's assume you make 60, you've averaged 65,000. That means you may get roughly 2,200 bucks a month. Does that or does that not do the trick? Probably not. Okay. A lot of questions come up to me in terms of when to collect Social Security. Should I collect it at 62, 66, 67, or 70? Here's a pretty good example of how much money you can expect to bring in from Social Security if you were to pass away at certain ages. So, age 80, if you were to get the most bang for your buck, collecting the money at full retirement at 66, 67 does that's where you'll get the most bang for your buck if you live until you're 80. And as you can see, you'll get 299,000 versus 223 or 287. And then at 85, if you can make it to 85, it would be much more advantageous for you to collect it at age 70. You're at 437. So the longer you live, the more money that you will get if you were to wait until you're age 70 to collect it. Now, here's a caveat. I used to always tell people, hey, at a minimum, collect it at age 66, 67, or 70 to get the most bang for your buck. But what I've realized since COVID is tomorrow's not promised. It would be a shame if you're sitting around waiting until age 70 to collect Social Security and you don't make it there. So you never had an opportunity to take advantage of it. So I've kind of changed my tune. You know, sometimes all money's not good money. Why not collect that at 62 the soonest you can collect it? Yes. Are you taking a hit? You're going to be collecting 30% less than if you were to wait until age 66 or 67. But at least you're enjoying your money while you're with us. But at the end of the day, you know, it's really about life expectancy. If you're truly trying to get the most bang for your buck, it's all about life expectancy, when you anticipate, how long you anticipate living. And then once you determine that, then you can figure out when is the best time to collect Social Security. Okay. I know someone's going to bring this up towards the end of the presentation. People always do. They talk about the windfall elimination provision. That's that provision that will cut into your Social Security or reduce your Social Security benefits if you're a government employee. And for many of you, this doesn't even apply. At the end of the day, the windfall elimination provision applies to folks who have not paid into Social Security. For example, most sheriff deputies do not pay into Social Security. So they're going to depend solely on their pension and deferred comp. So it's reasonable to assume that if you haven't paid into Social Security, then it's going to affect your Social Security. You're going to get less, or you may not even get any. But if you've spent your entire career paying into Social Security, then your Social Security will not be affected. Okay, just want to make sure that was clear. Let's talk a little bit about budgeting. This is important when it comes to retirement. Creating a spending plan, a future spending plan, is important. What do you anticipate your spending needs to be in retirement? Are the kids going to all be out of the house? Do you no longer have to take care of your grandchild? Are you moving out of the Bay Area into a state where the cost of living is lower? So you have to estimate what your spending needs are, right? What is the foundation of a retirement budget? Well, at the end of the day, many of you or some of you may not have saved enough towards retirement. So it's important to create a budget, or at least determine, if there's some opportunities for you to save more, right? Are you spending a little too much on your wants, right? Is there, maybe you're going to Starbucks every day, buying one of those venti lattes that maybe you don't need, right? That could be money that you could put into deferred comp. Or, maybe you eat out at lunch 3 times a week when you're at work. Can we cut some of that out? So creating a budget, looking for your spending, finding areas that you can cut, will give you an opportunity to put some extra money away towards retirement. Okay. What are additional retirement expenses that maybe you haven't thought about? Right? Home improvements. When was the last time you replaced the roof? What do they say? Tile roofs last roughly 30 years, right? When was the last time that roof was replaced? Right? Your car. How old is your car? When do you think you'll need to replace that? You got to consider that. Grandchildren. Do you have or do your kids have the need, or maybe you're unable to take care of their own kids, that you may have to step in and raise your grandchild? You know, have you thought about that? The big one, caring for aging parents. My mom's 82, my dad's 80. Um, uh, they may need, or I may need to step in to take care of my parents. Are you potentially in that situation? Do you need to remodel the house to accommodate your parents? So those are some extra expenses that you have to at least try to plan for, or at least think about that possibility, and it could cost you more in your retirement years. You're going to go through an emotional transition when you're in retirement, right? Switching gears a little bit, right now you're in the growing interest phase, right? When you're a month away from retirement, you're excited. It's party time. I'm going to do whatever I want whenever I want to do it. But then a year's going to go by. You're going to have all that fun. And then there's that potential that you're going to wake up one morning and ask yourself, now what do I do? Right? And that's not a very good place to be, but it can happen, and it does happen. But you will eventually figure it out, get your bearings, and you'll adjust, and then you'll hopefully settle down into a routine that you can stick with. Here are some of the psychological effects that I want to make sure you're aware of. Lack of structure. You spent 40, 50 years working, getting up and going to work at 8 o'clock, working from 8 to 5. You've been doing that 40, 50 years. Now all of that is gone, right? So that structure is not in place, right? Loneliness is a big one. That's what COVID taught us as well. That when you're stuck in the house, 24/7, that can, and if you're not married or no kids in the house, you can become a little lonely, right? And so those are some things that you might want to consider, or at least thinking about, figuring out how you're going to accomplish that issue or get around that issue. Procrastination. You spent a whole, your entire career, getting up in the morning and going to work, but now you're no longer working. And I'm sure some of you probably have had this happen to you over the weekend. You say, I'm going to get up at 8 to go do X, Y, Z, and next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock, right? You've been still in your pajamas, still in the bed. You kind of procrastinate, right? Now, when you're working, you only have the weekend to deal with that. But when you're retired, hey, that can go on forever. So we need to deal with that, and at least be prepared for that. And then obviously death, anxiety. Many of our friends, loved ones, family members, etc., are passing away, and you're asking yourself, when is my time? And so that can be somewhat depressing. So, but how do you get around that? Well, best thing to do is to get out of that bed and start doing some activities, some hobbies, volunteer work, part-time work. That's something I strongly encourage. Do something part-time to keep yourself busy. Sports activities, extremely important. Getting up, going to the gym, stretching, exercising is also important. Social engagement, again, that's important as well. So that's where the hobbies. If you have a hobby or you're doing some volunteer work, you'll get around other people, and to be able to interact. And hanging out with kids, I think, is also very, very important. I tend to get a lot of enjoyment being around kids. That makes you feel young, right? And it's uplifting when you're around kids. So I would strongly encourage that. Put together a plan to include that into your routine as you approach retirement. Okay. Or
Gene,
you're
there's
in
a
retirement.
question up on the board.
question.
The question is, can you roll deferred comp into an IRA after separation? Also, can you use deferred comp to buy back service credit tax free?
Okay, excellent questions. All right, let's start with an IRA. I was going to get to that at some point, but let's talk about it now. Once you leave county service and you have $500,000 in deferred comp, for example, and you're trying to figure out what are my distribution options? What are my options here? Now, you could leave the money in deferred comp, let the money continue to grow over time, and then just ask for money when you need it. Or you could roll your money into an IRA. Now, you got to make sure you do it properly. It has to kind of be behind the scenes. Check has to be made payable to the brokerage company you're rolling the money to. But you can absolutely roll that money into an IRA. But be careful in terms of understanding the cost structure by moving. I mean, because you're with a close to $1 billion plan. So because of the size of the plan, there's some perks in terms of fees and cost structure that may not be available to you on the outside. So just make sure you keep that in mind. Now, if, for example, you've had a conversation with someone at a Sarah, and there is some potential time that you can buy back. Time maybe you were out on maternity leave, for example, or you were just out for whatever reason. You can go to folks like Mike. Mike can direct you and buy back that service time. You have the option of paying it out of pocket, or you could use your deferred comp. So absolutely. And I encourage that if there's any time that you need to buy back and it's reasonable, because as you know, if you're buying back service time from 30 years ago, they're going to tack on interest on top of that, potentially. So it could be really expensive. But I would at least explore it. So absolutely. So there's some paperwork you'll need to complete behind the scenes. You'll pull money out of deferred comp and you'll put it into to buy back that service time. But you cannot do this after you left county service. So you got to make sure that you plan and do it before you leave county service. Okay. All right. And in terms
Yeah.
of the slides, did you want to address that, Mike?
Have you made any changes recently? They're up on our website, but maybe you've updated your slide deck.
Let's see. I know I sent you a couple. Well, you know what? I will resend it to you, Mike, and then you can update it.
Okay, sounds good. And
Okay.
I'll put that link, the link to that in the Q&A. And
Okay.
then if you all just give us like an hour after the Q&A, and then you can click on that link and download it.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So let's talk about withdrawal strategy in retirement. Now you have all of this money, 500,000. Some folks have 1 million, 2 million into deferred comp. This money you need to spend responsibly. It has to last for the rest of your life. And so I'm going to give you some tidbits in terms of different strategies folks use to put themselves in a position where they don't run out of money. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's see. All right, here are some factors in terms of your withdrawal strategy that you cannot control. All right, number one is longevity. You have no idea how long you're going to live. So because that's risk that's considered longevity risk that we have to kind of take into account. You could spend 35 years in retirement, 50 years in retirement. Doubt that, but anything's possible. Or 20 years in retirement. Investment returns. We have no idea. We don't know for certain what our investment returns are going to be, even if it's a money market. That money market interest rates fluctuate. Inflation is another big one. We have no idea how much the cost of goods and services are going to go up over time. So these are some factors you just can't control. So here's one strategy folks like to use is you just pick a specific dollar amount. Now, I typically tell people you whatever that dollar amount is, I don't think it should exceed 5% or 4%, somewhere in there. But you're picking a specific dollar amount that you're going to pull out every year, and it's going to increase by at least 3% a year to keep up with inflation. Now, it doesn't have to be 3%. You just kind of look at, all right, how much have goods and services gone up from a percentage standpoint, and you give yourself a raise based upon that. So that's an option. So you're picking a specific dollar amount, and you're increasing the amount you take out by 3% every year. That's an option. Option number two is to pick a percent, right? I'm going to take out 5% of my money every year. This ignores inflation. This ignores market performance. It's a percent of your balance every year. That is an option. Other folks like to use what is called the required minimum distribution approach. The IRS has some tables when they're talking about required minimum distribution. They have tables on when they estimate people are going to die. And so you can use the life expectancy factor tables within the IRS to determine how much you should take out. So that's an option. The last option is the capital preservation methods. You have this money in deferred comp. You want your beneficiaries to get whatever that principal is. You just want to pull out interest every month. That's an option. If you can afford to do that, those are options. So check with your CPA. You can have a conversation with me if you'd like. Gene, what would you recommend in terms of how much I should take out of my deferred comp if you need it per year? And maybe we can work together to come up with a strategy to accommodate that. Okay, so let's talk about taxes. If you invested in deferred comp pre-tax, expect that you're going to have to pay some taxes. Well, Gene, how much am I going to have to pay in taxes? Well, I have no idea. That's a moving target, depends on your income, depends on your personal situation. So if you want to know for certain or be close to exact, that's where your CPA or your tax preparer would be of assistance to you. But I can tell you that Empower will automatically withhold 20% federal, 3% state on any disbursements out of your deferred comp. So just kind of keep that in mind. 20% federal, 3% state. Now, if you're investing in the after-tax Roth, where you've already paid taxes going in, you don't have to pay taxes coming out. You don't have to worry about taxes. Okay? Will my Social Security benefits be taxed? Well, that depends. All of you are going to have some income coming from a SARA, so there probably will be a portion of your Social Security that will be taxed, right? For example, if you're an individual and you make $25,000 to $34,000 a year in income, and this is income coming from a SARA, you're looking at being taxed up to 50%. I'm not a tax person. I briefly talk about taxes. Check with your CPA, check with your tax accountant to confirm truly whether or not taxes apply to you. Okay. Impact of inflation, not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. We all know what inflation is. We need to keep an eye on things. If you are renting somewhere in the Bay Area and there is the potential of your rent going up, well, there's inflation. We all know PG&E, water, garbage, cable. Seems like it's consistently going up. So you want to kind of keep that in mind over the long term. Okay. Here's some real life examples of inflation. Here's what a gallon of milk to a car on average in 1980 cost and what it costs now, right? So we know what that is. So take into account, we need to put a little bit more money away towards retirement to accommodate or to get around inflation. All right. Where are we going to live in retirement, right? Deciding where you want to live is important, right? Cost of living, quality of healthcare, state taxes, etc. Extremely important. Here are some of the best states to live in to get the best tax rates, beginning with Delaware. If the cost of living is important to you, hey, you can move to Mississippi. Cost of living is the lowest, right? Your money will go up much, much further there, right? Healthcare important to you. Which states offer the best healthcare? Glad to see California is in the top 5. Okay. Um, where you live comes down where you live comes down to deciding what's mostly important to you. Now, I can say in my experience with retirees, most retirees end up wanting to be near their grandchildren. So just assume if your kids are going to have kids and your kids are living in the Bay Area in California, that's probably where you're going to live. If they move, then all bets are off. But typically, folks want to be near their grandchildren. Let's briefly talk about moving along to long-term care. Extremely important. What is long-term care? What does that cover if you have the insurance? Bathing, dressing, housework, etc. How much does it cost? Cost you an arm and a leg. I have a client who's spending 10 grand a month in a facility in California. So it can be extremely pricey. Is it worth it to buy long-term care insurance? In my view, I'm not sure it's even worth it. It's gotten ridiculously expensive and you don't get as much bang for your buck. All right, Gene, what are your options? Self-insure. Put some money away in an account or in deferred comp that's earmarked for long-term care. And if you run out, it is what it is, right? But it's important to put a little bit of money away towards long-term care because many of us are going to end up needing it. Okay. You think the government's going to cover the bulk of it? It's probably not going to happen, right? Medicare only covers a certain amount. Medicaid only covers a certain amount. So don't depend on the U.S. government, state of California to cover most of your long-term care. In many cases, it could, but then you'll be living in a substandard environment. And you don't want that. Okay. Estate planning, very important. Determining your beneficiaries is extremely important when it comes to estate planning. If you just have a will, that's not enough. When I was growing up, having a will, you thought, hey, I'm good. There's nothing more that I need. It's extremely important that, in my view, and it should be in your view as well, that your possessions, any monies that you have accumulated over the years, if you're not enjoying it, 100% should be enjoyed by your beneficiaries. So you want to avoid probate at all costs, if you can. What is probate? Probate is that process where your beneficiaries have to go to a judge to confirm who they are, and they have to hire attorneys. So you can end up, I have one case where a beneficiary had to pay roughly 25% of their inheritance to attorneys because their parents didn't set up a trust. They only had a will. Okay. So consider that. End of life medical care is also included in estate planning. So that's extremely important. Guardianship of children or grandchildren that are your responsibility should be included in your estate plan. And here are some of the components. You still want to have a trust. And I don't like that it says a will or trust. It should be will and trust, right? Should be included in your estate plan. Okay. All right. Where do I go in terms of creating an estate plan? You guys all have access to, from what I understand, what is it called? And I'm drawing a blank. Well, if you, for example, if you paid like this past November, you were going through open enrollment, and I believe there's MetLife Legal or some sort of a legal Zoom or legal whatever it is that you guys can pay for. That's an option that you can take advantage of. So if you paid for that, just call them up and say, hey, I'd love to hire a estate planning attorney to create a trust, will, etc. And then they'll help you out with that. Okay. So
Were you
estate plans,
were
yes.
you, were you trying to think of the employee assistance plan?
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I was drawing a blank on that. Yes, employee assistance program.
Yeah, no
Absolutely.
worries.
Call those folks up and say, hey, I was talking to Gene. I listened to a presentation, and I'd love to hire an estate planning attorney, and they can help you at a reduced rate. Okay. All right. What's next? Log on to Acera.org, create that user ID and password to determine roughly how much you're going to get from retirement. Extremely important. Navigate that website, play with the calculator. You want to determine how much you're going to get from Social Security, so go to ssa.gov. Need some information on Medicare, IRS. These are the websites that you can access to get more information. If you need some help, you're not alone. You have Mark Tomei on the left, you have Jason, you have myself in the middle that you can lean on to ask any retirement planning or investment planning questions. Here's how you can reach us at 855-969-4572. Here's the website. If you're looking to sign up for deferred comp, go to this website. If you want to bypass this 855 number and get a hold of me directly, that's fine. My telephone number is 510-562-6355. That's 510-562-6355. You can send me an email at g_Hilliard, HILLIARD, at emergefinancial.com. Okay. So with that, the other thing I want to make sure that people are aware of, I'm sure you've been getting bombarded from Empower encouraging you to create a user ID and password for their site. You can't use the Prudential information anymore, the Prudential site. So I encourage you, log in there, take whatever time you need to create a user ID and password. But if you need some help navigating that system, just give me a call and let me know. It'll be my pleasure and honor. Okay. So with that, I'd love to entertain some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gene. That was excellent.
Oh, thank you. There you go. Try to get through this and try to get it done by 1. And I'm close.